আচ্ছা, এই তুমি ওদেরকে বলো শুধু যে তোমার মানে যে বক্তৃতা দিচ্ছে তারই 24 ঘন্টা ধরে রাখবে এমন না। তার থেকে তো সরায় আশেপাশে মানুষ যে আছে এটা ধরতে হয়। ওরা কি এটা জানে না নাকি? না, ও যে এইসব ক্যামেরা দুইটারে বলো কিভাবে করে এটা। মানে ওই প্রোগ্রামে শুধু বোঝা যাচ্ছে যে উনি
আমার
করবেন।
ওই সাউন্ডটা গেছে কিনা আবার বলি, হ্যাঁ। হ্যালো, হ্যালো, মাইক্রোফোন টেস্টিং, হ্যালো, 1 2 3 4, হ্যালো, হ্যালো, শব্দযন্ত্র পরীক্ষা করা হচ্ছে, হ্যালো, মাইক্রোফোন টেস্টিং, হ্যালো, হ্যালো, হ্যালো। বাইরে
স্টার্ট করবো তো আমার মুখে থাকে। Uh, Good morning, the ladies and gentlemen. International Conference on Ensuring Sustainable Blue Economy in an Open and Interconnected Indo-Pacific Region, Japan-Bangladesh Cooperation in Synerging Latent Potentials among South and Southeast Asia, Bay of Bengal littoral and adjacent countries. This 2 days conference, this is the second day and first thematic sessions. The session title is Panel Discussion on Sub-Regional Connectivity in the South Asian Bay of Bengal littoral and adjacent countries. These discussions, we have very eminent Professor Dr. Imtiaz Ahmed. He will chair this session, Department of International Relations, University of Dhaka. And we have three paper presenter, Mr. Masanori Kobayashi, Senior Research Fellow, Ocean Policy Research Institute, the Sasakawa Peace Foundations, Dr. Shahnawaz Hussain, Assistant Professor, Department of Global Studies and Governance, Independent University, Bangladesh, and Captain Sabir Mahmood, Chief of Nautical Studies, Bangladesh Marine Academy. And we have also four very distinguished discussants. Mr. Tomohide Ichiguchi, Chief Representative, Japan International Cooperation Agency, JICA, Bangladesh. Ambassador Mashfi Shams, Secretary East, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Bangladesh. And Professor Mustafiz Rahman, Distinguished Fellow, Center for Policy Dialogue, Bangladesh. And Mr. Ipita Nishida, Senior Research Fellow, Sasakawa Peace Foundation, Japan. Now, may I request to Honorable Session Chair, eminent Professor Imtiaz Ahmed, Department of International Relations, University of Dhaka, come on the stage with all three presenters, along with all distinguished panelists. Come on the stage and have a seat. Thank you so much, sir. Now, may I request to Honorable Session Chair, Professor Imtiaz Ahmed, to coordinate and facilitate the sessions. Thank you so much, sir. Floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning to all of you. I'm sure you have heard already the excellent line of speakers, and I don't want to reintroduce them. They have already been introduced. So, given that there are some time constraints, particularly when we have 5 discussants and 3 speakers, what we'll do, and we have to finish in 1 hour and 30 minutes, and I want to leave some time for Q&A. So I request the paper presenters to limit their presentation strictly 10 minutes, and I'll try myself to give you a warning after 8 minutes so that you can wind up in last 2 minutes. And then, of course, the discussions, I believe 7 minutes would do. Then we'll have around 20-25 minutes to have a Q&A, and you can, of course, come back at the end. So let's start with the first presentation, and we have Mr. Masanori Kobayashi, and he's going to speak on sustainable fisheries and marine conservation in Bay of Bengal and East Indian Ocean. Mr. Kobayashi, the floor is yours for 10 minutes.
Thank you very much, Session Chair. It's my pleasure to speak and present my papers entitled Blue Economies, Sustainable Fishery and Marine Conservation in the Bay of Bengal. Ocean Policy Research Institute, we've been supporting the policy dialogues to mobilize collective actions toward achieving sustainable ocean and blue economies. We have been attending both national, regional, and sub-regional meetings, and we are also part of the global body to promote sustainable ocean economy called High-Level Panel for Sustainable Ocean Economy. We call it Ocean Panel, and we are part of the advisory network of that panel. In this work, we've been supporting the global movement and activities to develop sustainable ocean plan. And this sustainable ocean plan is one of the basic foundation for achieving sustainable blue economies. We consider marine conservation and the sustainable fishery or marine resources are the key important pillars that constitute the sustainable ocean management. As one of the background for the sustainable fisheries, we see the global fishing trend. Obviously, China is the #1 country in terms of the fish catch, followed by Indonesia. I would note that, for instance, India and Vietnam has been increasing their fish catch, while Japan, that used to be the #1 fishing country, has been losing its fish catch and coming to the bottom. Many of the fish stocks, now over the 34%, are considered as overfishing. So we have to balance this conservation, sustainable use, and the increasing the economic returns, and ensuring the food security of food supply for the people. In terms of the Bengal or the East Indian Ocean, we see a number of countries involved in the fishery resource use and the marine conservation. In terms of the marine fish catch, Bangladesh comes at the 5th, Indonesia #1, followed by India and Thailand. We also see the increasing mariculture productions of the many countries. So there are divided trend. One group has been increasing their fish catch and the mariculture production. Other group has been seeing rather stable the productivities. Freshwater fish catch, also the same. The freshwater aquaculture, we also see the different trend among the different countries. This is also reflected by the trading patterns of these countries. like many countries are increasing the seafood exports. Bangladesh, it is also exporting and importing seafood. When we exclude this Thailand, this import trend, Bangladesh, we see the substantive increase since 2012 or 13. So we see this kind of patterns, and we have to probably understand what would be the driving force or the conditions behind such changes. When it comes to the marine conservations, like a convention on biological diversity that will have a 15th conference of the parties in Montreal next month, they have a program called ecologically or biologically significant marine areas. You see in the Bay of Bengal and East Indian Ocean, we see this, we call it EBSA, the significant sea area located. Nonetheless, they are not necessarily designated as marine protected areas. So this is the map that shows the distribution of marine protected areas a lot surrounding Australian regions. However, there are a few in East Indian Ocean and Bengal Sea. In the case of Bangladesh, we see marine protected areas. Question is whether and how such a marine protected areas has been implemented and having generated this biological and economic impacts or effect for the neighboring countries. So we see this possible synergy or benefit or trade-off between fishery activities and marine protected areas. Bangladesh MPA coverage is over 5%, and that is relatively higher than other countries. But now the Conference of the Party of the CBD tried to achieve the 30% marine protected areas globally by the year 2030. So we try to understand this, the fishing patterns for Indian Ocean, the number 3 in terms of the fish catch among the ocean divisions. But in terms of the growth rate, the Indian Ocean, East Indian Ocean, has the highest the change rate over the past 30 years. So this is one of the issues that we also have to pay attention. And these high sea areas, East Indian Ocean, this Regional Fishery Management Organization, RFMO, is supposed to cover, but you see this blue one, that is the area where no RFMO is covering. So this regional fishery body, the East Bengal Bay and East Indian Ocean, has some like a geographical gap in terms of the RFMO's coverage. And the fishery trend, obviously the distant fishing countries are also playing an important part. And this IUU fishing, illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, is also a threat to the fishery sustainability. We do a policy dialogue on IUU fishing eliminations, and we say that the legitimate fishermen are actually losing economic benefit by seeing the more inflows of the fish from IUU fishing. A number of incidents are reported in Australia, even in Palau, and even in East Asia region as well. And there has been causing a global impact and fishery dynamisms, not just affecting the regions, but also the global fishery and the seafood access in different parts of the world. IUU fishing is not just threatening the seafood and the fish stocks, but it also infringing the human rights and the labor condition of the fishermen. So we have to ensure that the fishery sector is sustainable and socially equitable, and private sector and the market are also responding not to buy or procure the seafood from IUU fishing or socially disadvantageous fishery activities. Port State Measures Agreement of the FAO is one of the key policy instruments, but you see that major fishing countries are not the parties to this Port State Measures Agreement. So this is one of the institutional flaws that major fishing countries and major seafood importing countries must be part of this global instrument to eliminate IUU fishing spearheaded under the Port State Measures Agreement.
Two
One
more
more
minutes.
point I would say is the climate change impact. As the ocean warms up, you see the East Indian Ocean and the Bengal Bay areas marked with red show that the potential decline in the fish stock availability. And we've been also following this United Nations negotiation on the international agreement on marine biodiversity in the areas beyond the national jurisdictions. So countries also need to collaborate to create a kind of rules and regulation and possible arrangement in the high sea areas. And for Indo-Pacific regions, a number of countries are involved, and we see these regional and international institutional gaps that have a very limited thematic focus and doesn't necessarily have a comprehensive geographical and thematic coverage to address this. So our institute tries to approach these issues with some analytical framework, and we try to come up with a kind of motivated people get together to achieve the common objectives. And we hope that this sub-regional, regional, and international cooperation will help us in achieving sustainable ocean and sustainable economies. And I really hope that we can reinforce our partnership to achieve our common objectives. I'd like to thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Dr. Shahnaz Hussain, and his paper is on role of integration among stakeholders to achieve green sheep recycling for sustainable blue economy in Bangladesh. Dr. Hussain, you have 10 minutes. Thank you.
Honorable Chair of the session, Professor Imtiaz Ahmed, distinguished discussant, faculties, and representative from Sasakawa Peace Foundation and students. A very good morning. As you said, I'm going to talk about the topic, synergizing potentials among South and Southeast Asia, governance and policy framework for connecting the Bay of Bengal. If I try to divide my presentation, I will say I will divide it into four major parts. First, I will give a brief description of the area, and I will see the possibilities and prospects of connectivity among different regions of the area. Then I will little bit focus on policy framework and governance, what Bangladesh is doing in this case, and finally, I will give some way forward. As the method of the presentation or the paper, it's a work in progress version, and we try to basically depend on extensive literature review, case studies to make this paper. Okay, before going to the main presentation, I want to draw all of your attention on a topic that is, I think, most of you have heard the word Asian century. It's a term coined by ADBI around 2011 when it said that by 2050, Asia will regain its dominance by economic growth, what was Europe having with a per capita GDP growth of around 40,000 per year. So my assumption here is that if we want to realize this scenario or Asian century, we have to really increase our connectivity. And my hypothesis is that we really have to increase our regional integration, and particularly blue economy and the Bay of Bengal can play an important role. As this picture already shows, some countries even achieved, and interestingly, Bangladesh has achieved far earlier what was supposed to achieve by 2030. We are having now per capita GDP around 2,800, far what we expected. And as you can see, this Asian century scenario will be basically led by Asian countries. So if we really want to harness this scenario, what will be the main driving force? That's what I mean, the connectivity and regional integration. So this is my hypothesis for this presentation. Before going to the main presentation, let me to give a very brief description about the area. Bay of Bengal, this is the largest bay in the world. It has an area of around 2,017 hectares in water area. This is the largest, it has the home of the largest mangrove forest, longest beach. The Bay of Bengal countries consist about 1.7 billion, or around 20% of the global population. So this is the background of the area. Now I will show a few maps, which will show us how this map is connected not only within South Asia and going beyond to Southeast Asia, and also to the bigger global connectivity. The first map, if we see, we can see the Bay of Bengal is basically clockwise connecting 7 countries, starting from Sri Lanka, India, Bangladesh, Myanmar, Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia, particularly its Aceh province, in the tip of the Aceh province. So thus, the Bay of Bengal is a region which is connecting, is an area, the bay is connecting South Asia is well with the East Asian countries. But more importantly, Southeast Asian countries. More importantly, it is also connecting the Southeast Asia with the Northeast Asia and East Asian countries. We can see most of the energy and raw materials for countries like China, Korea, and Japan is coming from here in Persian Gulf to Strait of Hormuz, through Strait of Malacca, and going to this China, Korea, Japan. So thus, this area is also, this bay is also having a very important connectivity point for East Asian countries too. Again, if we see for the 2 important regions of southwest of China, that is the important province of China, Yunnan province, is in close proximity to the Bay of Bengal through Myanmar. And similarly, India's northeastern provinces like Mizoram, Tripura, Manipur, Meghalaya is also in close proximity from Bay of Bengal through Bangladesh border. So thus, these 2 areas, for these 2 areas, Bay of Bengal consists huge potentials. If I say now, due to this potential, what we can see in this area, major port and export, economic export processing zones we can find in this area, like we have the port of Colombo, Hambantota in Sri Lanka, to Chennai, Visakhapatnam in India, Calcutta, and also the Paira, Matarbari, Chittagong of Bangladesh, and the Penang, even Penang, Dawai, Penang of Malaysia, and Dawai of Thailand. All these ports and special economic zones are surrounded in this area. Now we can understand the importance why so many investments are going on in this area, even in Bangladesh case. If we go a little bit further, China is investing huge in this area, particularly China's proposed BCIM. Through BCIM connectivity as the greater part of China's Belt and Road Initiative, China is trying to connect these 4 countries, Calcutta, Dhaka, Mandalay, and up to Kunming. So it will connect basically the region to the greater global connectivity. So if we try to summarize this portion, we can see the Bay of Bengal is not only a connectivity within the South Asian countries and Southeast Asian countries, it is bridging the East Asian connectivity also, and further through Pacific to global connectivity. Thus, this bay has an important potential, and this connectivity has an important connectivity potential for the region and also for the world. So this is a summary of my first portion of presentation. So if we now see what are the potentials of connectivity in the bay, as my previous discussion also discussed on the marine, particularly the fisheries side, we can see this is one of the largest marine ecosystems here, contains extensive forest cover, marine animals like whales, yellowfin tuna, marlin, etc. found hugely here. Irrawaddy dolphins, all this we can find here hugely. These are the rare species which is not found in other part of the world. It is a highly profitable fisheries sector here, and this fisheries resource contribute hugely in some of the countries' GDP. For example, in Bangladesh GDP, we found that fisheries contributes around more than 3% per year, and many of these are coming from the Bay of Bengal and related area. Similarly, multiple river basins flow into the Bay of Bengal. For example, River Ganga, starting from the Gomutri Mountains, it flows into the Bay of Bengal, going through Bangladesh by Meghna River. Similarly, a tribute of Ganga, Hooghly, is also flowing to the Bay of Bengal. And the 28th largest river on earth, Brahmaputra, originates in Tibet, and it is finally going to the Bay of Bengal area. Thus, this bay is also keeping the rivers of this region alive. Enormous hydrocarbon resources are found here. Significant petroleum and natural gas reserves have been found in this area. Valuable minerals and mineral sands are found in Nagapattam and regions near Visakhapatnam of the Bay of Bengal area. It is an important geostrategic gateway for many countries of the region, and accordingly we have seen organizations such as ASEAN, SAARC has created number of regional connectivity initiatives in this area. Similarly, Bangladesh, India, China has signed several naval agreements, even with countries beyond the region, to keep this important naval route safe and free from any kinds of terrorism and disturbance. Thus, basically, this area is connected with 16 major ports. One of them is Port of Chennai, which connect the India around the 50 ports of the world. Another important port, Haldia, located in the state of West Bengal, it also hinterland port and connecting around handling over 40 million tons of cargo annually. Similarly, our Chittagong port is also
2 more minutes, please.
connecting very important route. So, what are the relevant challenges in the bay? Particularly energy-related challenges, we can see a lot of competition for the energy resources, and it will be increased due to the ongoing Russia-Ukraine crisis. Maritime presence and growth, many countries from the region and outside of the regions are trying to increase their presence by taking the importance of the area. And also other miscellaneous challenges, for example, natural disaster to political conflict. Also, we can see the problem of Rohingya problem arising in this area. So all these problems arise in this area, which will be a challenge for this area's stability. So if I see what Bangladesh is doing, and the Bangladesh, I will go it very briefly. For Bangladesh, geographical location, Bay of Bengal rim indicates its dependence on sea and both prosperity, for both prosperity and security. And accordingly, particularly after winning 2 verdicts in maritime verdicts with India and Myanmar, Bangladesh has a lot of potentials for the bay. And basically this was started, this was said long before by the father of the nation, and in a continuation of that one, Bangladesh enacted Territorial Water and Maritime Zones Act in 1974, and the current Prime Minister of Bangladesh gave a lot of emphasis on this issue, because around 30 million people of Bangladesh directly depend on oceanic economic activities in this area. So for Bangladesh, 2 important policy framework, particularly Vision 2041 and Delta Plan 2100, needs to accommodate these challenges and opportunities and do accordingly. So if I finally go, what should be the way forward in general for all the regions? My final understanding from here that we can see this picture in the regional connectivity in Asia. When I was doing research for this one, I have seen that there are a lot of so many overlapping connectivity mechanisms and tools in Asia. Asia failed to create a bigger connectivity in many cases like that of EU, NAFTA, this kind of connectivity. Rather, when we fail to make something very bigger, or when something very bigger is not working, we try to make smaller bilateral connectivity and agreement with each other, which is not giving us a big picture or bigger result. So Asia should work in this case. And my final thoughts from here, countries need to come together in collaboration to assist in mutual growth, which has the immense potential for the Bay of Bengal. The growth should include economic, diplomatic, energy, and other crucial angles. Uniquely given the ongoing energy crisis, countries has understood the need for more collaboration. Maritime resource of Bay of Bengal needs to be explored and utilized collaboratively and equitably. And finally, tensions should have to be reduced by increased engagement for cooperation and not by competition. So with this thought, I want to finish my presentation. Thank you for your listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Hussain. Do we have Captain Sabir Mahmood? No, not yet. Okay. So we don't have the third speaker. So what we do, we move straight to the discussions. So let me now request Mr. Tomohide Ichiguchi. And you have 7 minutes. No, you can't. All right. Okay.
Thank you very much, Professor Imtiaz Ahmed. It's really great pleasure for me to be here and to make some remarks on JICA's activities in Bangladesh and the other countries. As you understand, JICA is working under Japanese government, providing so-called ODA, Official Development Assistance, including the loan, grant, technical cooperation, support to private companies, and also dispatch of volunteers. And Japanese ODA is one of the largest in the world. Last year, amount was 17.6 billion US dollars. That is the number 3 after United States and Germany. To Bangladesh, we have provided 300 billion Japanese yen every year, equivalent to 2.5 billion US dollars. Such assistance started right after independence, and we continue to provide. As you understand, this year is the 50th anniversary of diplomatic relations between Bangladesh and Japan. And today, I would like to focus on the sub-regional connectivity or regional connectivities, and I would like to make contribution to the conference from development practitioners' perspectives. Our understanding on the issues about the regional connectivity in Bangladesh, of course, there's huge potential because of geographical position, quite advantageous geographical position of Bangladesh, but still those potentials have been hampered by several reasons. One is the limited availability of the road network to handle transport in both number and diversity of vehicles. We have to note that is a big challenge, particularly in Bangladesh. Bangladesh is divided by many big rivers and also many small rivers, and the land is also in scarcity. That is a big challenge for Bangladesh to develop the road network. Second, huge constraints in rail connectivities. Despite rail is economical, efficient, and environmentally friendly, still the network capacity is far from enough in railway connectivity. Thirdly, the transit trade between Bangladesh and surrounding countries is quite limited. Infrastructure is not enough, and also framework for transit trade is not enough to harness the potential of Bangladesh. What JICA is doing now, I think yesterday you talked about Big B and also MIDI. JICA has been heavily involved in Big B initiative and MIDI initiative. We understand that Big B initiative is to do the Bangladesh should become a node and hub of the regional economy. And Bangladesh should be transformed into trading nation, deeply incorporated into inter-regional and global value chain network. And MIDI, Moheshkali Matabali Integrated Infrastructure Initiative, that is the kind of core framework to implement that Big B initiative. And JICA has provided very strong support for that MIDI initiative. Big B initiative stands on 3 pillars. One is industry and trade. JICA has funded long-awaited deep sea port. located in Matabari area, which should serve as important trade gateway for Bangladesh to the rest of Asia and beyond. It is expected to be operational in 2026, 4 years to go. The second pillar of Big B is energy. JICA's vision of MIDI is transform Matabari area into a massive supply base of primary energy, such as coal, energy, LNG, and oil. JICA funded Matabari Ultra Super Critical Coal-Fired Power Project is expected to meet a significant portion of growing electricity demands of this country with very highly efficient thermal power facilities. Transportation is the third pillar of Big B. Dhaka, Chattogram, Cox's Bazar transport corridor, which accommodate majority of international and domestic trade in Bangladesh, is by far most important and need to be strengthened. JICA has provided funding for Kachipur, Meghna, Gumti bridge improvement projects, and also we are formulating the project for improving Cox's Bazar and the Chattogram highway improvement. In addition, now MIDI master plan will be prepared under JICA's cooperation starting next year to clarify what kind of industries can be developed in Matabari area and what kind of infrastructure are really needed for Matabari area. And also MIDI authority will be soon established in the government of Bangladesh to expedite development of Matabari area. JICA is now working beyond Bangladesh and in India. Northeastern region is JICA's priority region in accordance with Act East policy of Government of India. We have provided the huge amount of loan to improve connectivity within Northeast and also connectivity between Northeast and the Bangladesh. I think that would be a really great initiative. And also, we have provided the finance for improvement of Dhaka Benapole National Highway, Asian Highway #1. Recently, Modimoti Bridge, which was previously called as Kolna Bridge, was completed. And that has made significant impact for transportation in the western part of Bangladesh. According to our number, it reduced the travel time from Dhaka to Benapole by 4 years. That is quite significant. Lastly, let me touch upon Jamuna Railway Bridge, which is under construction under JICA's funding. And also we are thinking about funding railway connectivity at the western side, eastern side of Jamuna Railway Bridge. That railway connectivity could really contribute development of the western part of Bangladesh and also regional connectivity between Bangladesh and India. I have many projects with me, but let me stop here. And yeah, thank you so very much.
Thank you very much. We have the third paper presenters here, Captain Sabir Mahmood. Captain Mahmood, 10 minutes for you. Please go ahead.
Good morning and Assalamu alaikum. So today in this auspicious gathering, I am going to present my paper on the topics of role of integration among stakeholders to achieve green ship recycling for sustainable blue economy in Bangladesh. So I am already in one stakeholder. I am now working as a Chief Nautical Studies in Bangladesh Marine Academy, and very soon, within a couple of days, I am going to join in Mercantile Marine Office, which is the head of Flag Estate and Port Estate for the coastal jurisdiction. So the contents I would like to cover is etymology of ship recycling, historical development and present status, contribution of ship recycling in socio-economic development, challenges in SR, international law, regulating the SR, national law, and green ship recycling and conventional ship recycling, and various stakeholders and recommendations. So the word recycling has come at the end, actually. It has been started with the Basel Convention, and they have used ship dismantling. The ILO is using ship breaking. Ship owners are using ship scrapping. The various statistical data and other groups like BIMCO and others, those who are working as a consultant and various think tank for maritime sector, they are using it as a ship demolishment. And finally, IMO has given the best and most correct, appropriate terminology, that ship recycling. And when we will go in the international law, we will find that their approach is very appropriate to develop the condition and develop the eco-friendly ship recycling system. So the historical development, as you know, in Bangladesh, it was not pre-planned to start the ship recycling industry. It was due to the natural calamity. In 1960, one Greek ship was stranded, and from that first ship was scrapped. And again in 1974, during the Liberation War, another naval ship was bombed, and then later on it was salvaged and scrapped. And the industry grew steadily during 1980 to 1990, and suddenly after 1995 it has huge growth, and sharp growth has been taken. And from 2008 to 2009, the years had been increasing. And in 2010, there was a legal battle between environmentalists and Shipbreakers Association, and that has given a good opportunity to improve the ship recycling quality. And upon the judgment of the High Court, the government has taken steps, and in 2011, the government had first declared the ship recycling as an industry, and it has gone to Ministry of Industry, and they have given the ship breaking and recycling rules. And that time 142 yard applied for environmental clearance. And in 2012, Bangladesh achieved the first time top position in ship recycling. And in 2014, IMO Sense-Rec project launched. And 2017, the first Hong Kong Convention compliance yard has been established. And in 2018, Ship Processing Act 2018 passed by the Parliament. And you can see the graph, the data of the UNCTAD, that 2018, 19, and 20, Bangladesh was in the top position. And 2012 also in top position. So sometimes it was increasing and decreasing. And very important thing is China is going to came out from the ship recycling sector. They are actually now reducing, and they are converting their recycling places also into the ship building yard. So the driving force for developing recycling yard in Bangladesh, it was actually availability of long beach with combination of soft sand and muddy ground, and the perfect slope for beaching, 5 degree to 15 degree slope, and the large tidal difference, minimum from 3 to 10 meter tidal difference observed, and high demand for recovered goods, abundance availability and low cost of labor, and almost 98 to 99% materials reused locally. And average growth in terms of lightweight, and the average growth of Bangladesh ship recycling actually 14%, and the dismantled tonnage around 2.2 million LDT from 210 recycled ships. So the area of the recycled yard is from Bhattiari to Baraaulia, and it is about 15 kilometer area. So far, we have active yard is 68, and inactive is 90. Total 158 yard is available in there. And if average 20,000 light ship weight may be beast for 250 numbers, and total recycling zone, if in a year, in a yard can recycle 4 times of ship, 4 ship can handle a yard. In that case, the maximum capacity of this 15 kilometer area might be 1,000 ship, and which may cover 20 million LDT. But at present, we are actually doing 200 ships and 2.4 million LDT. That means we are actually not utilizing 10 times of the LDT capacity and 5 times of the ship's number capacity. And during 2020, we are 39% share and having the top position in the world. And our just immediate behind is India, 29%. So India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh are the very close competitor. And Turkey is a little bit away, but Turkey is following the fully HKC compliant yards, and they are getting the actually ships, maximum European Union ships. So contribution of recycling in socio-economic development of Bangladesh. So our maximum raw materials for the steel come from this ship recycling industry, and 25,000 skilled workers are working there, and 40,000 semi-skilled workers. Annual revenue from the ship recycling, government is getting $130 million US. The industry generated output is nearly $770 million US a year, and the national economy contribution is nearly $2 billion US. And our maximum industry, inland shipping, and many industries having linkage with this ship recycling, the motors, pumps, even the paints and various pipes, various aspects, our maximum things of the ship has been used, even the furnitures, 35,000 ton of processed wood every year delivered by the recycling yard to the industry, which is preventing deforestation and efficient utilization of coastal area, and that created a surge barrier. And from the energy saving and emission point of view, the production per ton of steel from iron ore requires 5 times more energy and 7 times more CO2 emission compared to steel production from scrap. That's why the IMO has given this sustainable industry, and this is actually helping to reduce the carbon emission and including the energy efficiency. Then the challenges of ship recycling in Bangladesh, it has been discussed plenty times, and many papers are there also. I will not go in detail of that thing. We have 3 main challenges. One is safety problems. The laborers are getting injured and sometimes even death caused as the job has been declared by the ILO as a dangerous job. The environmental problems are there because a lot of hazardous material are there on board the ship. When that has been dismantled, there is a risk to pollute land, sea, and air. And there are health problems, is also occupational health issues. So what is the solution? Actually, a lot of international and national regulations are there.
2 more minutes,
now we have
please.
to act. So compliance of all international and national legislation is important. And there are some practice in Bangladesh which need to be rectified to find the compliance. And the international regulations, the ship recycling in Bangladesh. So Basel Convention was initial regulation by UNEP, but that was not successful as there is a jurisdiction problem and there was not clarity, including the ship do not give early information. But IMO has adopted Hong Kong International Convention that has adopted by 2009 but could not enforced because the 3 main countries, India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, if do not ratify, it will be difficult to enforce. India already ratified, so now it is the ball on the Bangladesh. Bangladesh government already declared by 2023 they will try to ratify and comply Hong Kong Convention. And another important regulation which will affect our recycling, that is European Union regulation for ship recycling, which is more stringent than the Hong Kong Convention, and it is actually banned, it does not allow the beaching method. So all of our efforts will go in vain. And ILO is also concerned, and they are working with IMO and UNEP. A national law, Bangladesh Environmental Conservation Act, 1995, and that act make mandatory for the environmental clearance certificate for all type of industry. And the environmental conservation rules, 1997, that rule declared the area of ship recycling as a orange type, and there are some debates. Somebody tell it should be red, but still it is now maintaining the status of orange. And the shipbreaking and recycling rules 2011, it has given the detailed provision how the whole process will be done. And the last Bangladesh Ship Recycling Act, it came after 2018. And the two important issue in that act, one is that recycling zone should be declared, has been declared, and the treatment, storage, and disposable facility government will provide. Both of that is still not implemented. If that have implemented, we will have better recycling facilities. And the stakeholders actually, the government has established ship breaking and ship recycling board, though there is no physical office in existence, but from various committees, people are working and presided by the additional secretary of Ministry of Industry, and they are giving the NOC and issuance of LC and beaching permission and cutting permission, and Department of Environment issuing environmental clearance certificate, Chittagong Custom House, Department of Explosives, and the Ship Breakers and Recycling Association, they are the stakeholders. And already in Bangladesh, we have 3 shipyard, those are Hong Kong compliance. They have got the certificate from IRS and RINA. One is PHP Shipbreaking, one is SN Trading Shipbreaking, and Kobe Steel Ship Recycling Yard. And altogether, there is 8 yards under their custody, and 4 more years are working on it, and very soon they will also get a Hong Kong compliance certificate. So there is a good news for Bangladesh that we are coming up, and the first green ship has been recycled in PHP at 1st July 2018. And recommendation for sustainable ship recycling, that we have actually from the rules one board, and from the act another board, it has to be merged, and it has to act as independent office, and the office should be at Chattogram, which will be easier for one-stop service, and ship and recycling yard should be compliant to a Hong Kong Convention, and the training facilities should be in real-time training, and the various specialization of tug, anti-pollution, firefighting equipment should be provided, and there should be declaration of ship recycling economic zone, and development of regional forum with Bangladesh, India, and Pakistan, and development of bilateral ship recycling treaty with ship-owning nations. As now there are middle cash buyers, if direct ship-owning and recycling states are working, it will be easier and it will be profitable. And most importantly, we have to act as a flag state, port state, and recycling state. So Department of Shipping has the responsibility and has the capacity to work as a flag state and port state, and the Ministry of Industry can have the capacity to work as recycling state. So those 3 states should work in integrated way. So the finishing last conclusion is Bangladesh is actually the paradise of ship recycling industry in the world, and the industry could contribute more in future if country can handle the industry with care and transformative strategic leadership to convert the conventional ship recycling yard into green yard. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Captain Mahmood. Now let us move to the discussions once again, and I now have Ambassador Mashvi Shams. Mashvi, you have.
Thank you so much, sir. First of all, I would like to thank the 3 paper presenters for presenting such substantive papers. It was really quite a learning experience to learn about such 3 very different topics related to the Bay of Bengal and the Indian Ocean. And it just proves that how much, how much there is, this Bay of Bengal can contribute to the prosperity and sustainable socio-economic development of the countries surrounding it. Now, we can all benefit from our bay if we all cooperate, and we can all cooperate only if our various initiatives for regional cooperation or connectivity and all these come together, and we can all, we can practice what we are trying to promote. Just to give an example, here I would like to add 2 more countries to the list of countries that has been as mentioned as being dependent or as being related to the Bay of Bengal, because through Bangladesh, via Bangladesh, Nepal and Bhutan, the 2 Himalayan countries, are also connected to the Bay of Bengal. So Bangladesh is not only connecting South Asia, Southeast Asia, but it is also connecting the Himalayas to the Bay of Bengal. So this is one point I think that has been missed. But if we think of representative of JICA has mentioned that there are various constraints in Bangladesh, but Bangladesh has been in the forefront, and we are ready to promote connectivity, to promote regional connectivity, because the basic philosophy of the government right now is that connectivity is productivity. And all these initiatives, Big B, MIDI, all the bridges and the roads and rails that have been mentioned, they are all geared not only for our internal transportation and connectivity, but also to connect the various countries of the region. But I need to mention here that perhaps there is some, I wouldn't say reluctance, but there is some sensitivities where we can see that when Bangladesh is trying to go beyond Bangladesh, the borders of Bangladesh, there is some lack of response from the side of the other stakeholders. For example, if you look at the BBIN, the basic, the very core connectivity or integration network, if we, the very 4 countries that would stand to benefit most, from which we could expand to BIMSTEC or SARC or BCIM or any other initiative. Even in the BBIN, we have not been able to make much headway in the motor vehicle agreement. ADB is working, to encourage all the countries. Bangladesh has already, 4 among the 4 countries, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Nepal, 3 countries have ratified the agreement, which was signed in June 2015. Bhutan has not been able to ratify it. But even the 3 countries who have ratified it, we have not been able to move forward. The passenger, the passenger protocol is still being negotiated after 7 years, and we have not been able to come together. That would provide seamless connectivity between Nepal and Bangladesh, and Nepalese trucks would be able to come all the way to the ports of Bangladesh and use the Bay of Bengal for their own trade and transit. And it's very easy to blame Bangladesh and say that Bangladesh's bureaucracy is very strong or is not responsive enough. But believe me, when it comes to other countries, I sometimes think that we are light years ahead of many of our partners. Let us look at another initiative that we are working on. For example, the BIMSTEC multimodal connectivity roadmap was adopted during the BIMSTEC summit in March in Colombo. So that is a very ambitious connectivity master plan. But even that we are very willing to start work in that because that would allow Bangladesh to connect via India through Myanmar to go to Thailand and then connect to the east-west prosperity corridor of the ASEAN. But here again, we see that there are countries, namely Myanmar, if I can be slightly undiplomatic, they are not very much forthcoming to allow Bangladesh, access through that country within to go to beyond. Let us look at, if we forget the road networks, let us look at the coastal shipping arrangements. We have been negotiating with the countries like Sri Lanka, Myanmar, for years now. And coastal shipping would provide so much, facilitate movement of trade within this, because it would bypass the necessity of having to go to a bigger port and then transship. So it would make our trade easier. One good thing is that very recently between Thailand, Ranong port of Thailand and Chattogram port, we managed to sign a coastal shipping agreement. And I'm very hopeful that very soon other countries we will follow. And we have been, requesting or seeking, we are trying to inspire, encourage the countries of the region like Indonesia, Malaysia, that they stand to gain more if they join Bangladesh in this connectivity framework, and if they come to us. Because through Bangladesh, they will be able to access not only, the market of Bangladesh, which is already huge, but they will also be able to access Northeast India. They will also be able to access Nepal and Bhutan. So they need to come on board, and they can, benefit. So the potentials, as mentioned, are huge. But somewhere along when we are trying to implement, there is an issue of the mindset. So perhaps we need to work more, and I think seminars like this will be very important for us to unlock the resistance that's there in our minds, and to open up our ideas to the potentials that we can have. There is for increased trade and tourism. The one aspect that has not been even touched is tourism. Huge tourism potential between the littoral countries of the Bay of Bengal. I remember when I was DG South Asia in 2011-12, and we were working very closely with Mustafiz sir for the first tentative steps that we were taking for discussing transit, or if we don't say transit, connectivity issues between Bangladesh and India. And there was a lot of, the fear of unknown in our minds. But through discussion, we have been able to dismantle much of that fear that was there in Bangladesh. I think we are very much comfortable within ourselves now. And that idea that transit is loss of sovereignty or will be a threat to our national integrity is not there anymore. So we are ready. Now what we need to do is to work with the countries of the region and to encourage them to think that transit or connectivity will be collective prosperity. So I think I'll end here now, and we can listen to the others. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ambassador Mashri. Now let me request Professor Mustafiz Rahman. Mustafiz bhai, also 7 minutes.
Thank you, Professor Imtiaz, also a very good friend of mine. I would like to register my deep appreciation of this opportunity to share some of my thoughts on 3 very, I think, important papers which have been presented And I think IUB's Center for Bay of Bengal Studies and Sasakawa Peace Foundation must be congratulated. This is a very, I think, opportune moment for us to discuss some of these issues. And I would like to take from where Ambassador has just mentioned that there are enormous potentials, but there are also points of some success, but I think a lot of frustration as well. Dr. Shahnawaz mentioned about the Asian century. If I look at Bangladesh, I think the Asian century is bypassing Bangladesh, and will bypass if we don't accelerate what we need to do. And I'd like to conceptually make a distinction between regionalization and regionalism. Now, you see, when countries open up, there will be some economic and transport connectivity, etc., among countries, between countries, bilaterally, plurilaterally, multilaterally. But regionalism is a conscious process whereby you deepen connectivity in order to translate your comparative advantages into competitive advantages. And there I think that we are really lagging. Ambassador mentioned about the BBIN motor vehicle agreement. We have signed it in 2015. And some of the standard operating procedures have also been finalized. But why it has not taken off? We can blame, our partners, but I think that that is something that ponder about. Asian century, South Asia, East Asia, and ASEAN together contribute only 12% of Bangladesh's export, and we are talking about taking advantage of Asian century. And in 2010, it was 10%. So over 12 years, we have increased our exports to the region by only 2%. So, for example, I will give you another example, BIMSTEC FTA. The framework agreement was signed in 2004. 2004, the framework FTA agreement. And this is 2022, right? And we haven't signed the FTA. You see? So that's where really the urge to take advantage of the opportunities which are there. As Ambassador very rightly mentioned, there were times when connectivity, between Bangladesh, India, it was a no-go area. But through efforts, we have been able to come to this point when we are saying not whether, but how. Okay, so this is a progress, but very slow, I must say. And Bangladesh will be graduating in 2026. And we will be losing preferential market access, even in Japan, which provides for 99% of our products duty-free. So how do you then make the transition from preference-driven competitiveness to productivity and skills-driven competitiveness? How do you do that beyond 2026? And that's where I think that Ambassador Tariq Karim is pursuing this issue, and I see the vision that he has. I think that this is where really the next great opportunity for Bangladesh will be there. The Indian Ocean Rim countries, the opportunities that we have by deepening our, I said, triangulation of transport connectivity, trade connectivity, and investment connectivity. And that's where the bilateral relationship with Japan, the big B, comes into play. Enormous opportunities. Just think of it, 70% of Japanese import from China, and China is a major source of import for Japan. 70% of that comes from Japanese investment in China. And Japan is now thinking of shifting from China to the other regions. Enormous opportunity for the big B. So if we can really triangulate investment connectivity, trade connectivity, transport connectivity, and many things as has also been mentioned by the ambassador, that many opportunities are there. We are, the SASEC connectivity, the BBIN connectivity, Indo-Bangladesh coastal shipping connectivity, multimodal connectivity, all these are there. But we also have to do the next steps. Our borders are really choking point, control points. These are not crossing points. So we will have to build a single window, harmonization, standardization of all the procedures, interoperability of the systems. If we can do that, then we can translate Bangladesh's comparative advantages into competitive advantage and can take the advantage of the Asian century that we are talking about. So I think that the task for us is really cut out. And going forward, I think that the urgency which has to be there, unfortunately, I don't see that urgency. Sustainable use of the Bay of Bengal resources. No, you see, if you look at Myanmar, it's exploring and exploiting the Bay of Bengal oil and gas resources, investing in it, and we are talking about imported coal, imported LNG. So where is the political economy in all this? We are not really investing where we should. And our import lobby is really becoming so important that our investors' lobby are lagging behind. I think that is not the way to go forward. With regard to sustainability, the paper that was presented by Mr. Kobayashi, I would like to mention about that, for example, you have mentioned about illegal fishing, etc. And in WTO, the 12th ministerial meeting, there was this fisheries subsidies agreement, which has been endorsed by the WTO. And we see that the developed countries are over-exploiting the marine resources in the Bay of Bengal area as well. But the governments are providing subsidies. So there is some discipline which has been put now on the subsidies. But what is the interest of the artisanal fishing communities over there? So I think that the issue of subsidy which are being discussed should not bypass also the interest of the small-scale fishing industries. And with some subsidies they will have to enjoy in order to remain in business. So I think that these are also some issues, the global multilateral systems, which also impact on the regional cooperation that we are talking about. So lastly, I would like to once again mention that enormous opportunities, if we look at what is happening together around us, but there is a need to really also coordinate the various connectivities, the multimodal connectivities which are being put in place. I think that the issues of harmonization, standardization, as I was mentioning, is very important. Harmonization of technical barriers to trade, sanitary, phytosanitary measures, these will also be important if we want to deepen regional and sub-regional cooperation, and also the development of production networks and the value chains. I think that if we can do that, and Bangladesh is now planning to set up 100 special economic zones, I think that if we can attract foreign direct investment in these special economic zones, then only we will be able to triangulate the investment and the transport connectivity which is being there with the trade connectivity which we need. I think that that's how we have to go forward, and I will once again say that it will have to be a conscious policy. We just cannot leave it to the markets. And there, the politics and the political economy should get the ascendance. And the last point that I will mention is also the tension I can see in the region. We see that there is RCEP, Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, where Japan and China is there. We also have the ASEAN, but very recently you also see the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework for for progress, where China is not there. So I think that this region should also not be a battleground for various, big powers. Trying to isolate some countries, not being inclusive. So I think that if that be the case, the political economy may undermine the economic opportunities which we may have and which we do have in this region. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Mustafiz. We have the last discussant, Mr. Ipeta Nishata. And you have 7 minutes, please.
It's on? Okay, thank you very much, Professor Ahmed. And thank you very much for having me to this conversation. I'm very much delighted and honored for 3 reasons. The one, because I've been very curious about this Bay of Bengal region, even though I'm not this regional specialist. But I had the chance to participate IUB's conference last year online, and it's been on my dream destination. The second is that I've been working as the think tank scholar, but I'm also a member of the Japanese government's the External Committee on the Foreign Aid. So I recall that we've discussed a couple of the projects on Bangladesh, including the debatable firepower project, energy plant project in the Matabari. The third is it's always great to talk with such distinguished scholars, but more so, I do believe the conversation with the young people, the students, is most important because they are the ones who build the future. So for all these reasons, I'm very much grateful for this conversation. Thank you very much for the host. Now, I come from the Sasaka Peace Foundation, but I have to say that I'm different from my colleague Kobayashi-san. They come from what they call Ocean Policy Research Institute, which is the world premier research institute, policy think tank on oceanographic issues. I come from the Security Studies Program, which is another think tank function of SPF. So what I talk is more or less the sort of perspective on strategic issues. Now, I have 3 points to talk that I want to discuss with you, which is actually related to the last point that Professor Rahman just raised on the regional tension. The first is the nexus of FOIP, free and open in the Pacific and Bay of Bengal as contested stage. The second is importance of having the common vision between Japan and the Bangladesh. The third is facilitating BOB stability, which is the necessary next step after the economic development. So talking about the nexus of FOIP and BOB, you see how we are looking at this region. But coming back to the Japan's FOIP, we learned from the Ambassador Ishii's speech yesterday that there are 3 pillars. One is rule of law, the normative agenda. The second is economics, prosperity agenda. The third is let's talk peace agenda, the stability, which is the security of the region. Now, Japanese FOIP concept is quite vague, and it doesn't have any particular sub-regional agenda. It's intentionally made so that it can be adapted to any of the regional issues. But the thing is, we are seeing the arising tension in this region. The FOIP has many of the sub-regions: East Asia, East China Sea, South China Sea, Oceania, Bay of Bengal, the Arabian Seas. Now you have seen in many of these areas, we are having some of the regional strategic tensions. The East Asia, we have the territorial claims by China over our island. And also we have seen in the Ukraine crisis that sometimes deterrence doesn't work. So we are discussing really heavily on the issue of Taiwan crisis. On South China Seas, as you know, they are always having a heated debate on the strategic competition among the members, as well as China's intrusion. On the Pacific, we have seen the Solomon Island, agreeing in the strategic, the security cooperation agreement with China, which has made us realize there is increased need to attend to the Pacific Islands politics. Now, Bay of Bengal is going to be the next one. You know that. You already have a lot of risks in the region. The natural, climate change and the change of the intensified disaster is one, and also the intensification of the radical movements in the region. But moreover so, we are seeing that many of the countries, including Japan, China, United States, Europeans are coming into this region. They are eyeing on economic opportunities, as we have been discussing, but also seeing this region is going to have the strategic importance for our commerce and stability in the region. You already have the instability next door Myanmar, and we are also going to see a new hegemon next door India. How of this region is going to be is really a question to us. So that is one of the reasons I think we as Japan and other countries should be paying much more attention to this region as a whole, not just on Bangladesh, of course. And I'm looking forward to see what our new strategic guideline that the government is discussing right now. We are going to have the new national security strategy and the defense guidelines in this December. So having said that, I would like to move on to the next point, the importance of having the common vision. Now, I understand that Japan's huge economic support since the time of your independence, and especially after the 2014 comprehensive partnership on the Big B, and you are actually taking off a lot. And I'm seeing it, and it's great. But if you look at this 2014 agreement, to me, it's important, but it's also the function of Japan-India relationship. As 2014 is a time when the Modi administration turned the look east policy to act east policy and started to discuss more closely on this connectivity. So it's not just the Japan-Bangladesh issue, right? Now, you were talking about the Vision 2041, and you want to be a developed country, which is great. I totally support it. But to do that, you need to be the net provider of the security in this region as well. And how can Japan and Bangladesh, cooperate in this regard? There are a variety of agendas that needs to be discussed. And I think my colleague Kobayashi talked about the needs of the sustainability and continuity in this region on the dialogue. And so I feel there should be some of the agreed guidance by the two governments to move forward how we can jointly put forward the Bay of Bengal agenda in the future. And to do that, I think the multi-stakeholder dialogue, such as this, or the wider version, is necessary. And this is not just in regard with the fishery or maritime resources, but also for the regional security. Now, let me just come to the third point, because I think the time is, I don't have much time. The facilitating the BOB stability is important. We have seen in the Kobayashi's report the highest increase of fish catch in this region, and you are trying to expand your fishing industry to the blue ocean, deep ocean. The professor also talked about the natural gas, natural oil potentiality in this region, which will attract a lot of capital and political discordance in this region. Remember, we have a serious territorial issue with China when the UN team found oil ground underground oil ground in 1969 in a place near the Senkaku Islands. In the 1971, China started to claim that island is their own territory. This is how territorial claim starts and it goes on, right? So we should be watchful how this oil gain will be. The expectation of the such things can intensify competition, and there will be higher needs for the maritime visibility, surveillance capability, rescue capability, and patrol capability, all the accesses that are currently I do not think the Bangladesh Navy or the Coast Guard has. So I think Japan is supporting the Coast Guard quite much by providing the patrol vessels, and this should be improved. While doing so, I realized that there's almost no defense coordination between Japan and Bangladesh, and this should be somehow enhanced. And so that I think at least the Navy to Navy talks and the collaboration, capacity building, and perhaps Japan's more of the visible support in this region can enhance the Bangladesh stake in this region. Lastly, relate to this, I think the Bangladesh also look at Japan as a good, reliable security partner in this region in this regard. We have good relationship with India, and the Bay of Bengal agenda is quite a big one, and we have heard about the challenges of how difficult it could be to involve the many other partners. But external partners like Japan, or it could be, I don't know, US or Europeans perhaps, could be sometimes useful to facilitate such kind of dialogue. So I think it might be interesting for you to think about. So those are 3 points that I wanted to talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Nishida. Okay, now we have a series. Thank you very much. We have a serious problem time-wise. We ran out of time, so what we'll do, let me open the floor, for 10 minutes or so, and take some burning questions if you have. And because I need at least 5 minutes. As a moderator, I just can't come and go. That will look really odd. So 10 minutes. If you have a burning question, raise your hands and keep it precise, and let's see what we can do. Please go ahead. Yes. Yes, please go ahead. If you can, the mic is there. This mic is coming. Just a minute.
Hello. Okay. So what can be done to enforce the policies needed to stop illegal fishing? Will other navies need to be involved? For example, the US Navy has the biggest navy in the entire world, and their navy has also been involved in, like, for example, stopping Somalian pirates. So will they need to be involved when it comes to stopping illegal fishing? Because some countries, for example, like India, has been illegally fishing in the seas of Sri Lanka, and Sri Lanka can do nothing because, as you understand, they're more weaker geopolitically. So will bigger economies need to be involved in stopping illegal fishing? And I have also another question. Like, for example, some of the fishing techniques actually harm the seabed. While they do not affect the sea population as a whole, in the long term, they are hurting the ecosystem of the sea. What can be done to stop from fishing companies from using those techniques? Thank you.
Lovely. Any more hands? Yes. Professor Imtiaz Hussain.
Good afternoon, good morning. Those were lovely presentations, but very quickly, Mr. Kobayashi, I liked your paper very much, and just wanted to know something about shrimp cultivation in the southwest of Bangladesh. What impact will that have on our Sundarban forest, which are not saline or salt friendly? A second question would be a comment for Shahnawaz, and that is you gave us a lot of information on cargo flow increasing, but so are toxics getting into the bay. If you look at the Kornafuli export processing zone, it's just replete with, even Dhaka's 5 rivers have toxics. What are the consequences? The flip side, you said, the bay gives life to the rivers. How about salinity destroying life? For example, if you go to Sharda police station, where the Ganges enters Bangladesh, we are losing so much water, they now have restaurants where there used to be the Ganges. And every district south of the Ganges are getting so saline they cannot grow crops. And therefore, we do have a problem of salinity overcoming huge parts of Bangladesh because of diversion of the Ganges through Kolkata to go to the bay. And so these are issues that we do need to look at. And Captain Sabir, I liked your presentation very much, and especially learning so much about recycling. But just one question, the one that Bangladesh has a huge bad face globally, and that is ship breaking. Can you say a little bit about how can ship breaking be kind of made more civilized for ship cycling? How can we make it more sustainable and make it give a better face to the rest of the world? Thank you. Oh, just one last one. Mr. Ichiguchi, what can we researchers who want to go to JICA export processing zone, for example, Matarbari, how can we get permission to even enter to do our field studies? Thank you.
Okay, yes, please. Thank you, sir. I am Marine Engineer Sajid Hussain, Commandant of Bangladesh Marine Academy. I have a question to Captain Sabir Mahmood. We know very well that during ship recycling, 97% of a ship is being recycled. Can we not term it as already a green industry? Thank you.
Okay, we have, no, you had your chance. We have the last one, please. Yes.
Honorable guests, my name is Yeroban. I'm an undergraduate student from Bangabandhu Maritime University. I'm a student of oceanography, and so I have very little understanding of international relations. So when I was listening to the discussants, mainly Mr. Ichiguchi and Mr. Nishida, my main question, a very basic question is, there are a lot of countries, least developed countries, in need of assistance from developed countries. So what makes Bangladesh stand out to the eyes of your country and your organizations? As a Bangladeshi, the question is, what makes my country and my nation attractive and a worthwhile investment to you and your foundation? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, what I will do, we'll have 1 minute each response from each of you. That's the only thing we can do, given the number of speakers and discussants. So let Mr. Nishida start and go serially.
Thank you very much. I appreciate those questions. I think the question I got was the first one from this gentleman here, and the last one. So the first one, how would the big powers, external powers, come in to stop the India's bully action on illegal fishing? That is the point. And I have to say, there's no. I mean, it's something that you have to do. It's a national responsibility. But in order for the Bangladesh to deal with the big neighbor, you need to have both hardware and software to be improved. You need to have the wide awareness of what's going on in the maritime domain. You need to have the patrol capability and law enforcement capability and the dispute resolution mechanism. with India, right? And external partners like Japan can have support. And I think Japan is already providing some patrol vessels, and that is one. But more and more, as I mentioned briefly on the EU, the EU is also trying to engage in the Indo-Pacific as a security provider. But they are not coming in as hard security provider, but more on soft security in the areas that you like illegal fishing, such and such. So take this the opportunity to leverage the third country engagement. That is a point I wanted to make. The first question. The last one, what makes Bangladesh stands out? I learned so much of the affinity the country have, the Bangladesh people have with Japanese over the 50 years of the partnership, and that is an asset. Japan, as you see, is not a country which will develop. Not like the Bangladesh. We are already a developed country, but given the population size and also the declining economy, we are not the ones rising up. We are losing. We need to therefore invest on our current relationship in the international system and gain more of our diplomatic support where needed. It's not only the economy, but also the politics, right? Japan is going to become the UN Security Council non-permanent member next year, and this is 13th time. We really find it necessary to be represented in the global politics, so that we protect the current international order and for our interests. So there are a lot of things that Japan expect a country like Bangladesh, and there should be more of the common agenda. As Bangladesh is one of the top contributors to international peacekeeping, and we should count on. So there are many things, but I think my time's over.
Thank you. Dr. Hussain, 1 minute.
Thank you, sir. I think I will address the question partially targeted to me by Professor Imtiaz Hussain. Imtiaz, sir. It is the byproduct, I will say the byproduct that is coming from the sea and polluting the river pollution and how to deal these issues and salinity. I really like the presentation made yesterday by one of the Japanese presenter when they're showing the rivers of Tokyo area around 1970s. All the rivers, Sumidagawa, Kandagawa, and the Tama rivers. It was severely polluted. And then now if you go there, I have been living there for 13 years, I have seen all the rivers are kind of lifeline of the city. So my answer will be that if we want to address this problem, we have to go with policy, technology, and actions, both from internal and external sides. I know, I live in Chittagong. Sitagundo I have seen. Many countries take it as an easy ground to break the ships, dump the ships with excessive toxic materials. I saw how the Karnofuli is destroying the city, coming the water everything in the city. Some of the actions are from our side and some of the from external side. So I think technology, and it is possible to tackle those things, and policy should be taken by taking the best examples from others. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Ichiguchi.
Sure. Yeah, I have two questions, I believe. One is the permission for research in Matabari area. I think you may communicate to the BESA, because BESA is the taking care of industrial area, industrial parks in Matabari area. But if you want to carry out research on the port, you may contact Chattogram Port Authority. It depending on which area you are interested, you may approach to relevant organization of government of Bangladesh, because we are financer. Basically, government should give permission to you. The second question is what is required for Bangladesh to attract investment from other countries? You have to do a lot of things, honestly. Important thing is, of course, infrastructure, and also some land for factories are really required. I'd like to draw your attention to the Japanese funded international level industrial park will be established next month. Contribution from Sumitomo and also JICA also make some equity contribution. That will be really great kind of a push for promotion of foreign investment. Also, human resources also important. Skilled human resources also important. Also, policies and regulations are also critically important. As you understand, according to doing business survey by World Bank, which was abolished a few years ago, but at the last survey, Bangladesh was almost at the bottom of the ranking. So you have to significantly improve policy and regulation as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ambassador Shamsi.
Thank you, sir. Actually, no specific question was, meant for me. But however, listening to everybody, I would just once again like to reiterate that there are a lot of potentials, but all the countries need to come together to harness these potentials. We need to identify where our comparative advantages are. We need to, agree to collaborate. After COVID, we did realize that it was very much more important for all of us to work together, to collaborate. But I think after the Ukraine-Russia conflict, increasingly we are seeing that countries are becoming more self-centered, if I can say. We are sort of, it's like everybody for himself. That I believe will be very, it will be a very dangerous way to go, especially for the smaller countries like Bangladesh. So we need to come together, and for this, Bangladesh, as I mentioned earlier, whatever our problems, we are quite ready to move ahead. What we need is for our partners to recognize that we are ready to move ahead. So thank you all again.
Thank you. Just would like to address one question which was about the illegal, unregulated, unreported fishing. The IUU fishing, yes, for the first time in the WTO, there has been an attempt to bring some discipline. So, at the ministerial conference, 12th ministerial conference of the WTO, which took place in June 2022, there was an agreement, which is called the Agreement on Fisheries Subsidies, and that agreement puts some discipline on IUU fishing. So this is the first time that, but there are also other issues with regard to the subsidies that are given for other types of fishing also. But this is a good start, I think. If someone is not complying with the WTO decision, they can be taken to the WTO dispute settlement body and sanctions will be put on them. So at least a good beginning. Thank you.
Thank you. Just the Professor Rahman. The IUU fishing really require multifaceted responses. First is, of course, the national government has to monitor the ocean, increase the maritime surveillance capability by deploying the surveillance ships. You need a cruise. You also secure the budget to procure fuel. Information exchange among the countries are also essential. Regional Fishery Management Organization, RFMO, also has to play a role. And if there's such an institutional gap, countries have to identify proper bodies to address it. Stakeholders also have to respond, like a fisherman in some countries, like they do self-patrolling for the ocean. The fishermen themselves monitor the ocean, exchange information, and notify or report the illegal fishing vessels. Market has to respond. The retailers, supermarkets, they refuse to buy fish from IUU fishing. So this kind of approach is essential. Just on the shrimp farming, of course, we have to avoid the trade-off between the shrimp productions and the destruction of salt marsh or mangroves that are very important blue carbons. So we also need to look at this ecological balance as to how we can optimize the coastal space use for sustainable coastal aquaculture. Thank you.
Thank you. Captain Mahmood, please.
Thank you. First, I want to give answer of the first speaker. He made question that how our ship breaking can convert into ship recycling. So already we have advanced a lot. Actually, 20, 30 years before, when there was ship breaking, that time there was not that much percentage, 97, 98% recycle. Lot of items they was to throw, lot of items they was to just go away with the ocean, sea. But now actually every tidbits, every item and item wise from the gate has been sold. So our job is, one is those who are taking these goods, that forward linkage, that whether they are using it in proper way and they are not even polluting again in our inland or our land side. So from the shipyard side, they are selling it. Even the pipelines, even the asbestos, which is very difficult to reuse, very limited part of the asbestos, again, they are trying to reuse. So that much capacity we have due to our economical and socio-economic condition. And to make more environment-friendly recycling, definitely our capacity has to build up. Actually the whole industry has been started with ad hoc basis, amateur basis. Now it is some very recent, we have some regulations and we have some initiative from the recyclers. So as we are very close of that industry, we have seen that the industry people and the owners, they are actually giving good effort. So now it is the time for the government actually to show some effort, because government has to develop infrastructure and we have a very big issue of land ownership. That's why some of the owner of the recycling yard, they are not owner of the yard, they are simply using it on rent. That's why they don't want to invest for the long term. So government should procure an acquisition and give the long-term lease. And the laborers, they are also not their permanent laborers. We have seen there are contractors and the contractors are coming. So the contractors have no licensing procedure. So many things we have to do even. And regarding the pollution, this is a lot of things in the theoretical way. But as we don't have sufficient lab and sufficient testing procedure, that's why we are many of times we are telling many things, but not on the basis of data. So there is also approved threshold level for all contaminants. So we should check that whether it is within the threshold level. If it is exceeding, there is also measures how it can be reduced. So professional way it has to be handled. And regarding a second question, that yes, obviously, this is the IMO who has given the name recycling, and definitely this is the most green and sustainable industry. Because if we see any industry, even the water bottle, how much percent is coming back to the industry? Even the furniture, everything is actually going and mixing anywhere in the land or a river or anywhere. But here, every single thing is actually recycled. So that's why IMO has a good initiative. He is not only giving pressure on the recycling yard, he is trying to go back and give some responsibility to the ship owners also. Because the owners are the first hand of the responsibility to prepare his IHM and to deliver the vessel in proper manner to the recycling yard. So there is a middle gap. So that's why the opportunity, if we can ratify the Hong Kong Convention, I hope we will have more advancement and there will be more changes and more environment friendly and worker friendly recycling yard will be coming. Already we have a lot of years our Hong Kong Convention compliant, so we don't have any problem should there. But we have a challenge actually for the European Union legislation. And there is a big tug of war as their legislation is banning beaching system. So from their flagship, because Danish and Norway owner ship is huge. So now those ships are coming by FOC, flag of convenience. They are before scrapping, going back to the another flag, easy flag, and then coming to the yard. But it is actually open secret. Everybody knows where it is going, which is going where. So that regulation will keep us a big burden. So if we do not have collaboration and our strategy, national interest, if we do not have, we will have problem in future. So that's very important. We have important connectivity and collaboration among within these countries, India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, for the sake of ship recycling. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Captain Mahmood. Well, I have to have 5 minutes to, as a moderator, I just can't leave. Well, I enjoyed all the papers and of course the discussion. Let me flag 4 or 5 things, and maybe we can have discussion later on. One is, the world is moving from unipolarity to multipolarity. And there is no way to reverse that. And this multipolarity has, this is for the first time human civilization will have multipolarity globally. Earlier, there were multipolarity regionally, maybe in Europe, in South Asia or in Africa, but not on a global scale. This is for the first time we are going to have multipolarity. And we are not really sure because we were familiar with unipolarity, we are familiar with bipolar world also, and a lot of people thought actually that we were moving towards another bipolar, but it seems that the Chinese are not interested in a bipolar world. They probably think that they would benefit more if there is a multipolar world. And there are good reasons for that. So that's the first thing I want to flag. Now you need to now start thinking how you will negotiate and what will be your professionalism in multipolarity, because it's a, it's a new thing. Nobody knows what would be, and this is going to be a fluid multipolarity. It's not going to be a region multipolarity, because you will have countries in one polar, with almost aligned in another polar. So this fluid multipolarity is something that we need to keep in our head if we want to make sense of Bay of Bengal or Indian Ocean or Indo-Pacific, whatever we are talking about. The second thing, when it comes to Bangladesh or even Asia becoming important, it has to do with the honey. Don't forget, and I always use Nazim Hikmat's, fantastic line, and this is a Turkish poet saying that if there is honey in my pot, bees will come from Timbuktu. You don't have to worry. So what you have to do is you have to make honey. Now, why Bangladesh has suddenly come up? Well, for last 20 years or so, we had on average 6% growth. And the more growth we'll have, the more honey you have, the bees will come from all the places. And I say this with confidence because back in the 18th century, don't forget, China was the largest economy in the world, and undivided India was the second largest economy in the world, and in that undivided India, Bengal was the richest province. The British came all the way to Bengal not for poverty, not to seek poverty. It was the richest province back in 18th century. And during those days, I think, if I'm not wrong, undivided India contributed to 22 to 23% of the global economy, but when the British left, it got down to 2%. So what happens to the 20%? Well, go to the British Museum and you will find the 20% there. That's it. So the whole developed West that you see today came out of colonialism and slavery. So with decolonization, you have a totally different kind of a structure, and you have this globalization, following decolonization, and it can never be reversed. So what you need to do is to build honey. So I'm not really worried about this connectivity at all, believe it or not. Connectivity will come, whether you like it or not, when you have the honey. Roads will be built when, if you don't have honey, if you build only the road but there's no honey, then it's not going to work. It's just going to lay down there and probably rot. So my point here is, start building the honey, and I guess as Bangladesh being the 7th or the 8th largest country in the world, with the population that you have, make Bangladesh 100% literate. Believe it or not. Make it 100% literate. And I go to the Meiji Restoration when the debate was taking place in Japan of why they are lagging behind Europe, and the answer was literacy. And in 20 years, they made a difference in literacy and got up. Just contribute to education and literacy, and I mean quality education, of course. We still have 30% people who can't read and write. That's not going to take, South Asia or Bangladesh anywhere. So that's a second point. The third point that I want to flag is, you need to be careful with economies of different countries. Not all economies would want stability. There are economies who thrive on instability. There are economies who thrive in conflict, in war. Keep that in mind. And these are developed economies. They need industries, they need conflict for the industries. So if you think that every country is looking for stability, that's not the right way of thinking. And I think this is very important, and given that we now have the Ukraine war, Russian-Ukraine war, you can easily see that some countries would want instability. The fourth one I want to flag, and this relates to Bangladesh. The elite of Bangladesh is still not confident of the future of Bangladesh, and that's a serious problem. The elite, literally, and I mean elite not in the economic sense of the word, I mean elite in all sense, political elite, the academic elite, the military elite, the bureaucratic elite. One of the leg is outside. That's the problem. Their children don't live here. That's a serious problem, I'm telling you. And they live, they can go and study and come back, but they don't come back, they stay there. And there's not only a brain drain, there's an asset drain. And that's a serious problem. If you tell me what happened to Sri Lanka, I will tell you the elite never got back into business because of the 30 years war in Sri Lanka, and that's a problem. It has nothing to do with debt and all this, anti-China, whatever people talk about Sri Lanka. That has nothing to do with China, because both China and Japan have 10% debt when it comes to Sri Lanka. So what happened in Sri Lanka, the elite lost interest because of 30 years. The children don't live there, and you can see something of that is also we are having in Bangladesh, and one has to be very, very alert. And how do you stop that? I have no easy answer, but I just wanted to flag that. And the final one, and the other one is we also sometimes forget about that, we are living in capitalism, for God's sake. Connectivity will not happen if there is no profit. There has to be profit. You can have all the idealism. You can have all the state intervention. But unless there is profit, it's not going to work. So this capitalism, you can't, get out of the old Karl Marx. And Mustafiz Bhai knows very well, given his past record of, almost living with Karl Marx. So I'm trying to say, simple. One has to go back and read capitalism, Capital, and see that you can't really bypass, this issue. So you can have the idealism of state intervention, doing this and that, something, but unless there is money, unless there is profit, it's not going to work. The final thing, and this has to do with this particular platform, I think it's time that we establish something like Indo-Pacific virtual oceanic multiversity. I'm not even using the word university, I'm using the word multiversity. At this time that since, I think, because of the pandemic, we know that you have the technology where you can interact with people anywhere in the world. This particular session also, people can actually listen in Netrokona and also in California at the same time. So if that is the case, I think the time has come to establish, and I would say a virtual oceanic multiversity. And Ayubi, can take the lead in that. And we have our Japanese partners here also, who I believe would also be interested. And there are other, I saw when the maps were there, you must have seen all those countries. You can invite them as well and start a virtual multiversity on this issue that Ambassador Mashfi was pointing out, that the mindset is not ready. That's the problem. So you can't bypass education, you can't bypass, linking the youth. So the youth of Sri Lanka and the youth of Bangladesh and the youth of Japan and the youth of Thailand, if they are not convinced and if they don't study together, it's not going to work. Each of us, we are having an insular, a silo education. And that silo education creates all the tension and all the misconception beyond the borders. So how do you overcome that? The one way of overcoming is you change the very concept of classroom. Classroom is a problematic concept, as you know. First of all, it's a class. That itself is a problem. And then you have a room. But now with the technology and with class, if you can make it D-class, then you can have D-class space in this virtual world to begin with. I'm not trying to say that's the way out, because you need, in-person contests and all. But it's time to think beyond national curriculum, beyond nationhood, beyond the territoriality that we have, if we want to change the mindset that Ambassador Mashwi was flagging. But I believe the discussion that we had was excellent. I'm sure people would, think more when they have time. Some of the things that we have heard in the last 2 hours and take it forward. So I'm very pleased that IUB has done that, and I know Ambassador Tariq for many, many years, and I'm sure I see his energy even now, and that gives me hope also that maybe the future is absolutely bright when it comes to IUB and Bangladesh-Japan relations. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, I kindly request you to please be seated. We are just waiting for our guest of honor, His Excellency Mr. Samsul Alam, the State Minister for Planning, and I'd request all the distinguished guests to please come on the stage and take a group photo, sir. Please, please, sir. Sir. Sir, please, sir. We have among us our guest of honor. His Excellency Samsul Alam sir is among us now. So we'll start our closing ceremony within 5 minutes. So I'll request everyone to kindly be seated. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please have a seat. We will start our closing and wrapping up session within 5 minutes. So our everyone guest is here just for taking preparations. Please don't leave the room. যাবে না জি স্যার yes yeah okay. And actually, Tomar Yakamasu-san also would like to present this one. So, how show in folder? এটা present করবে কেমনে? Just দিয়ে দিলে তো হবে নাকি? He has. I already give him. Yeah, he also on this one to he also. Yeah. Okay. এই ইয়াতে রাখে কিভাবে? হ্যাঁ, এখানে রাখবো? হ্যাঁ, এটা উনি পেস্ট করবে। এই যে এটা প্রেজেন্ট হবে এখান থেকে এভাবে হ্যাঁ এটা প্রেজেন্ট করবেন ঠিক আছে আচ্ছা আমি থাকবো পর্যন্ত হ্যাঁ আচ্ছা এখন শুরু করেন আমি শুরু করি শুরু করবেন ব্যানারটা নিতে চাইছিলাম হ্যাঁ ব্যানার দেন নাই দেন আসছে Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our 2 days international conference closing sessions. It's my pleasure to inform you all of our guests, chief guest, His Excellency Mr. Sabir Hossain Choudhury, Member of the Parliament, Honorable Chair of the Parliamentary Standing Committee of Ministry of Environment, Forestry and Climate Change, Bangladesh. He's already in here. And also our guest of honor, His Excellency Dr. Shamsul Alam, Honorable Minister of State, Minister of Planning, Bangladesh. He's also in here. Now I would request Mr. Ambassador Karim to give accompany both of our chief guest, guest of honor, and our special guest, including Dr. Tomonari Akamatsu, Ambassador Mashad bin Momen, and Rear Admiral Abdullah Mamun Choudhury. Come on the stage and have your seat. Sir, International Conference on Ensuring a Sustainable Blue Economy in an Open and Interconnected Indo-Pacific Region, Japan-Bangladesh Cooperations in Synergizing Latent Potentials among South and Southeast Asian, Bay of Bengal, littoral and adjacent countries. We are really pleased to inform you all, we are going to successfully complete our 2 days events. Here is almost 200 students and 40 specialists from different grounds participated in last 2 days. And this wrapping session, our special goal is to inform the policymaker what is the outcome of this 2 days international sessions. First of all, I would like to give thanks to Center for Bay of Bengal Studies on behalf of my organizations, Ocean Policy Research Institute, the Sasakawa Peace Foundation, for helping us to arranging this such a interesting events, and also our all youth participations, which was really, really great. Now, may I request our very eminent diplomats, Ambassador retired Mr. Tariq Karim, to facilitate this concluding session. Sir, floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Imadul Islam. And I welcome to the stage, to the podium, a chief guest, my good friend, and an intellectual whom I hold in very high esteem. The chief guest, Mr. Sabir Hossain Choudhury, MP, Honorable Chair of the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Ministry of Environment, Forestry, and Climate Change of the Bangladesh Parliament. He, of course, has many other distinctions, but I think he's a modest man. If I speak too much, he will rap me on the fingers. I know. I also wish to welcome the guest of honor, Dr. Shamsul Alam, the Honorable Minister of State, Minister of Planning. Thank you very much, sir, for responding to our invitation. and coming here. We, the Center of Bay of Bengal Studies at the IUB, we have an agreement, an MOU with the Ocean Policy Research Institute of the Sasakawa Peace Foundation. The president of the foundation was here until yesterday, until last evening he left. It was a privilege for us to have him here. The head of the Ocean Policy Research Institute is here today, and he has been here throughout, attending these 2 days. We arranged this joint conference as part of our collaborative activities. It's also to mark 50 years of Japan-Bangladesh relationship. It also celebrates the nature of development, the nature of relationship as development partners and friends with historical ties that have grown steadily over the last 50 years. And we discussed a number of areas. So I will call on Dr. Tomonari Akamatsu, Director, Division of Ocean Policy Research of the Ocean Policy Research Institute, Sasakawa Peace Foundation. He will appraise us of what has happened until now. So you will have before you, in your mind's eye, what is there. I also welcome on the stage Rear Admiral Abdullah Al-Mamun Chaudhry, the head of the Bangladesh Institute of Maritime Research and Development, BIMRAD, with whom we also have a collaborative arrangement which I helped to put together 3 years ago. The Bay of Bengal, in our thinking at the time, Bay of Bengal research is meaningless if we are doing it in a cubby hole or a room somewhere locked up in a corner of a university. We have to have feet on the ground, so to say. And in that sense, our partnership with BIMRAD is really a strategic partnership. Dr. Akamatsu, may I request you now to appraise us of what happened yesterday and this morning.
Okay, so thank you so much, really distinguished guests, and also the organizers and the audience, and the really good and nice, dense conference. I really appreciated about that. And my name is Tomonari Akamatsu, and from the OPRI. And let me summarize what we were discussing and we are seeking for in the future in kind of my summary. Okay. I'm really sorry about this, because handwriting pictures, I just tried to summarize over this 2 days talk. And initially, many ministers and high-ranking persons emphasized Japan and Bangladesh 50 years or even plus. There are really, really deep relationship and partnership between two countries. Okay, yeah, this is really important. And the theme of this 2 days conference is mostly like a sustainable economy. One of the very much nice example is the Big B. Bay of Bengal is a great potential for the development and for the future investment target. And many of the presenters described a lot of issues, but also the futures as well. And I categorize into two. The one is mostly like a maritime issues. And one of the big issues, the Mata Valley port, and including port, the infrastructure development, that is quite important in Bangladesh for the kind of ignition motor for the industrial development. And not only for that, but also for the sustainability. We definitely need a recycling, especially for the ship breaking yard. And there I saw a very much updated, cutting-edge fish recycling system in the of the Chittagong area, and that is still only 3 companies are green, and rest of them, nearly 100 the company is red, is not really recycling sustainable. So that is another big issue. And not only for such kind of the industry side, but also the education and development of the seafarer. That is another important for the human resource aspect. And many of the guys emphasize about the FOIP, the Free, Open, Indo-Pacific area. And that is a very important issues, not only for trading, but also the security issue, because of the Bangladesh area is a very important trading route. So even just the maritime issues, there is lots of things we need to tackle on. The other issue or other theme is the environment. The fisheries are most important industrial stakeholder in the ocean. And not only for the fisheries, but also the agriculture is now really growing up worldwide. And not only for the producing of the seafood, but also another issues also happening in the ocean, like IUU, illegal fishing, unreported, unregulated fishing, and also a lot of pollutant, including the plastic and oil, can be exposed in the ocean. And lastly, the carbon sink and also mangrove, the ocean have a great potential for the sustainable ocean. It's that they have their own recovery power and procedure. So how we can enhance that? So we have nearly 10 or even more these kind of subjects. Keep talking in these 2 days. And we now knew that current status or the issues here. And we also sharing the same goals, like a blue economy, a sustainable development, or the carbon sink, or the conservation and the developing or good maritime management. And the question now is how we can do that. The important thing is the management plan. We have many management plans for each subject. But plan is a plan. It shouldn't be just on the paper. We need to plan to implement for the actual social system and make it work. To do that, we need 3 components at least, especially in the Bangladesh side: the investment and monitoring and capacity building. The investment, how we can invite investment, that is a big issue. And also the question and answers they done in the previous section. And not only to invite investment, but also when we implement that investment in the actual situation, we need to do the sustainable development. Otherwise, the development will not be, keep going for many years. And monitoring is also very important. Not just to put the money, not just building something, but also keep monitoring what is going on in the ocean. That is very important, especially for the efficient operation, not only for the maritime or cargo, container, but also the fishing, agriculture, IUU, and also the conservation. Any kind of the part, we need the monitoring and keep monitoring and also implement a law enforcement. And lastly, the capacity building is very important. It's education and also training, so elevating a literacy for all of the people, then that it's going to encourage a capacity building, encourage a capacity for any kind of management plan, make it happen. So this is my kind of map of the talk of these 2 days. And let me show one example for the monitoring and efficient operation. You well know about these days the digital society. And digital transformation is very important, and even that may be changing our society now. And the automatic identification system for the ships, all of the big ships are already digitalized and to transmit the location and the situation to the center station, the server. So we knew the location of these ships. But that kind of the AIS system will be changing in the next several years. It's probably AIS 2.0. And that is via satellite system, a 6T satellite constellation. will be rounding around the globe. And that makes that bimodal digital communication from the land to the ship, but also ship to the land. And what we are thinking about, what's going to be happening after such kind of digitalization happening in the ocean. We can monitor many things, everything happening in the ocean, by digitally, through the space or through the land, and to monitor the container ship, monitor the fishing vessel, and also maybe monitoring the garbage or the blue carbon, and to see what is happening now by using that kind of digital infrastructure of the communication. Then to try use that information for the management of that kind of the issues. And this is even much easier for the developing country rather than Japan, because of the Japan has many, many regulations, many different type of the communication tools. But you are relatively simple communication system, especially in the ocean, actually nearly nothing in the offshore. So you can implement and import immediately and jump into the cutting edge digital society within, I think, within 5 years. So you can be jumped into the top digital ocean management countries in the near future. That is, I'm really hoping about that. So that is one of the examples how we can implement the management plan in the reality. That's it. So thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much for audience.
Thank you very much, Akamatsu-san, for bringing us, particularly our honored guests on the stage, up to date on what we have been discussing, the broad parameters of it. We have lost two cabinet meetings, two distinguished participants who were supposed to have come. The Foreign Secretary and the Environment Secretary both have to respond to calls from higher authorities. However, Foreign Secretary has been very kind to give us a recorded message, a 5-minute recorded message. We'll play that out, and then we'll go to the other speakers. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Moderator, Honorable Chairman, Parliamentary Standing Committee, Honorable State Minister, distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen. I thank the Center for Bay of Bengal Studies, Independent University of Bangladesh, and the Ocean Policy Research Institute of the Sasakawa Peace Foundation for this timely initiative, and also for inviting me to this session. Japan is a time-tested friend of Bangladesh. The landmark visit of our father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, to Japan in 1974 was a watershed moment in cementing our bilateral ties. I consider it to be a high point in my own diplomatic career to have served as the Bangladesh ambassador to Japan. Our two countries have now entered the stage of an all-encompassing comprehensive partnership. It reflects the maturity of our bilateral relations in this 50th year of the establishment of our diplomatic relations. We are confident that our relations will scale further new heights during the visit of our Honorable Prime Minister to Japan in the near future. The Bay of Bengal Industrial Growth Belt, or Big B, initiative launched by Japan is indeed the vehicle for advancing our mutually beneficial cooperation in the coming decades. The Dhaka-Matarbari Industrial Belt or Corridor being developed under the initiative will emerge as the most dynamic growth engine for Bangladesh. This is expected to be a game changer.
I apologize for that. I think in the transmission, it dropped off. Okay. Well, basically, I also wish to explain why we try, certainly in my events that I hold here, dealing with transnational issues, particularly issues relating to the environment and regional connectivity. We have to sensitize and involve the main ministry, the foreign ministry, which deals with transnational issues. If it's not on the agenda of the foreign secretary and the foreign minister and the concerned officers, it will not translate in the discussions that we have bilaterally. Ultimately, relations, as they say, politics is local. Ultimately, international relations, whatever multilateral discussions we do, come back there. So from the very beginning, I have endeavored to try and sensitize and have their participation as much as possible. And I'm grateful that so far, even if the participation is in general terms, this is the nature of diplomacy, they will not come out and commit anything straight away to your face. But the fact that they become sensitized is something on which we can work. We had also hoped that Dr. Farina Ahmed, the Secretary of the Ministry of Environment, and she's very, very eloquent and very knowledgeable, being an environmental scientist herself in the subject, but she's also been called away to a meeting. So we will be putting together all the points that we have here. We are very grateful that the State Minister for Planning is here, because planning is the ministry which has to pull all the strings together. And I think that is something which I have noticed in us, basically in the South Asian region, that we tend to work in silos. If we are dealing with one issue, it has many other side issues or equally important issues which you have to deal with simultaneously. And if we don't do that, what happens is that if you're trying to make progress on one front, something else that you are doing which is contrary will drag that progress down. And that is where your ministry and your role, sir, has a particularly very, very important function. For quite some time, the planning ministry was relegated to the sidelines. I'm glad to see that it is coming forward more proactively now in trying to put together the various threads and make a cohesive whole of whatever we are trying to do. I will request now our special guest, Rear Admiral Abdullah Al-Mamun Chowdhury, the chairman of the Institute of BIMRAD, to kindly share his thoughts with us.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today's chief guest, His Excellency Mr. Saweer Hussain Chowdhury MP, Honorable Chair of the Parliamentary Standing Committee of Ministry of Environment, Forestry and Climate Change. Guest of honor, His Excellency Dr. Samsul Alam, Honorable Minister of State, Ministry of Planning. The special guest, Tumoneri Akamastu, Director of Ocean Policy Research Institution, and respected moderators, and also the audience, ladies and gentlemen, assalamu alaikum and very good afternoon. First of all, I think I'm really happy and extremely happy to be here. I was the first member of the Blue Economy Cell, which was established in 2017. And I'm really happy to explain my experience on the aspect of blue economy when it was started at the beginning in 2017. And I also thank the Ocean Policy Research Institution for inviting me in this forum. Just to share my experience on the part of blue economy, all of you, most of you are aware that blue economy is not the single subject. More or less 26 different sectors, agencies, organizations are being attached, starting from the shipping, ship recycling, tourism, fishery, even environment, climates, everything are inclusive in the blue economy part. In 2014, Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, in the first international seminar, the concept of blue economy was being flourished to our people, and it was that was the starting of blue economy in Bangladesh. So later on, in 2017, formally, the Blue Economy Cell started under Ministry of Energy and Energy Division. So what do you see after starting with that, though it has been most of the study on the sea, like your BAPEX, Petrobangla, independently they have a lot of study on the what is under the oceanographic department. because we don't know what is under the sea still. It has not been accumulated in a formal way. The concept of blue economy was then started, and it has been followed under that ministry because of that reason, sir. But however, after the maritime demarcation, that foreign ministry also working as a maritime division, but we find that like Bangladesh Oceanographic Research Institution, that is under Ministry of Science and Technology. We find the oceanographic department of Bangladesh, Marine Biology and Dhaka University Ocean, that is under Ministry of Education. Then GSB, there is one of the finest organization where they goes for geological survey, and a lot of scientists we saw and we met them, but they don't have any exploration experience on the sea because of limited resources what we have. So on that perspective, as per the directives at that time, the SDG, Sachiv was there, that is Mr. Ajad sir was directed us to formulate a policy for short term, medium term and long term. So the durations categorized for short term was 2 years that time, and categorized for 5 years for about mid term, and long term about 10 years. So out of 26 sectors, we have formalized the steps for 4 to 5 major areas. Like one of the issues is the fishery, then tourism, then ship recycling, what has been discussed in the last meeting. There is a major issue was that time, because in 2017 and 18, the Bangladesh was the second largest recycling profited, there is organization was just after China. So that was the major, that 5 to 6 sectors, we tried to make a formalize that steps for long term, short term, medium term. But that is still in the paper state, as Honorable Chief Guest was explaining today, that if it is not being set under one umbrella for as a coordinating body, it sometimes we face some difficulties to formalize. Like as a cell under EMRD, as a cell under Ministry of Energy, it is very difficult to materialize many of the major issues. So I just share some of the ideas, like sir, one of the issues was that time that long line fishing. That is, we have our fishermen, as I remain at sea, so I stayed about 15 years at sea in the naval ships. We see the fishermen are going out from the Paira, from Chittagong, from Karnafuli. They just go at blind. They don't know where the fishing ground is, and they go up to only 40 to 50 nautical mile. There is only 50-meter lines. They don't go beyond. But deep ocean, the deep sea fishing is not being done because of our infrastructure development, our resources limitations, and that aspect, if our Honorable Minister, as State Minister sir is here, if it is being formulated from one sector, that at least initially we can go for any joint venture project with Japan authority. They are also very good in long line fishing. So on that perspective, sir, initially for 4 to 5 years, this is my personal opinion, sir, 4 to 5 years, if we can run with them jointly, then we can build some infrastructure in recently developed port in Matharbari or Paira or Chittagong. Like discharging of that tuna fish is also, you need some organized and specialized area, because that fish need to be kept in minus 27 degrees Celsius. So that infrastructure, if you can develop within next medium time factors, I think that there is one of the sector what we can earn. We can see visually that blue economy perspective can be formalized. Another issue is like, sir, our GDP as per our individual capacity has been developed a lot, and now in this season of tourism, you find every weekend the people are going towards south. Every coastal area is filled up with a lot of tourism, but we don't have sufficient, except few ports in Sundarban area, that coastal area in like your Nijamdeep, Sundarban, that is south to the Noakhali area, is not being, it can be planned in a better way to see the blue economy visualization of the blue economy we can see. Another concept, sir, has been developed in India recently, that has, they can find out the concentration of chlorophyll through some surveillance systems. What they do, sir, they have some surveillance system, they find out the fishing area. And this fishing area being recognized by the surveillance system, and it is being intimated to the fishermen. So before the fishermen goes to the sea, they find in app, in their mobile that this area today the fish is available. This area fish is not available. So they don't go blind. They go to the respected area and they carry out fishing. And another issue is always coming up. We always hear that overfishing in our area. Actually, sir, I am at sea. It's not overfishing because our fishermen does not go beyond 50 meter line. And that is the reason all fishermen remains in the 50-meter line. We call it overfishing. We don't go beyond. So that is the reason, sir, we need to have long line fishing, at least deep ocean fishing vessels. It can be done in the private sectors. It can be done in collaboration with other countries. And for your kind information, sir, earlier we used to hear in the paper our maritime security organization like Navy and Coast Guard, we are totally protecting our anti-fishery activities. Like earlier, a lot of Thai trawlers even used to come in our area. They used to take out the fishes, but nowadays it's being stopped. And even from the neighboring country, when they come, we drive away from our areas. So there is also here, as a security organization, we are providing support to the blue economy. And sir, finally, sir, I'd like to thank again to the organization who has invited me and for your kind information, sir. BIMRAD is a newly organized Bangladesh Institution of Maritime Research and Development. There is the country's first research organization patronized by the Navy. We started 2018. And our Japanese counterpart will may interested for exploring an opportunity for collaboration with BIMRAD. So far, sir, we have already 12 MUs with different agencies, including Bangladesh and international. And I hope, sir, with this, this is a very good forum, sir, that we can explore our researcher and also use it together. We can share our knowledge and we can build our maritime community much better for the exploration and exploitation of our blue economy. So thank you very much, sir. Thank you for patient hearing. Joy Bangla.
Thank you very much, Admiral Abdullah Al-Mamun Chaudhry. You raised a couple of points which I was discussing privately with the Honorable Member of Parliament, Mr. Sabir Hussain Chaudhry. The lack of cohesiveness, the multiplicity of organizations and organs dealing with similar or same subject, and the lack of coordination between what the left hand not knowing what the right hand is doing. Now, this is not just Bangladeshi malaise. I've seen this in India, very widespread, between federal and state government, between state government and local government, between local government and municipality. And it basically, what it does is, in the end, it ends up with a lot of duplication of resources, wastage of resources, lack in time in addressing problems and issues. And somehow I wish we could arrive at a place where we could coordinate all these things. Also, what happens is it's exacerbated by turf wars. It's basically, and I'm being very blunt, it is exacerbated by turf wars because of ego issues or other things. I've seen it happen all the time, even when I was practicing and trying to put things together. So these are things which are a matter of I think, our cultural mindset, which needs to change. That will happen slowly, but if enlightened policymakers like you take an interest, every little voice helps in trying to push it together. We have not come where we are today in one big leap. We have come in steps which have brought us here. Before I go on, I wish to flag a couple of points before I go to the Honorable State Minister of Planning. Apart from the fact that we need to have a cohesive and more holistic approach, yesterday, for example, we learned a number of things which I was not aware of. In the session on fisheries, for example, made me realize that we need to have not only national, but also a regional policy. Regional policy needs a collaboration. The map which he showed of the Bay of Bengal, half the side, salmon fishing has been so overfished, he said that in 10 years, the Indian salmon could disappear. Now, of course, fish has to be allowed to breed. We do that with Ilish and other fish that we have control of. but we also have an interest in salmon. Then tuna fish is not yet endangered, but it is in the point of reaching that tipping point. Again, now, nationally we need to do some things, but we also need to do some things with other Bay countries. That is where the importance of drawing in other Bay of Bengal countries, because it is a commons. The commons doesn't belong to any one person. And everybody, I think the diplomacy has to be heightened with our neighbors in the Bay of Bengal. Basically, this is where our future is. Bay of Bengal is of existential importance to Bangladesh. And there are three dangers that I see which bother me, which impelled me to leap into this fray, into these waters. One, the mangroves. Every saltwater body everywhere in the world has natural trees which grow supported by saline waters. They are mangroves of different species or genus thriving. All along the Bay of Bengal, there used to be a mangrove forest. That is my estimation. I would say if we went back to records of 200, 300 years ago, we'd find that. Today, they are surviving only in Bangladesh, West Bengal, and a small bit of the Arakan coast. Indonesians realized some time ago, very recently, that they need to also regenerate because their population was suffering from the brunt of storms and high surge tides and losing land. So they have been trying to do it, but they are having a tough time because commercial plantations, cash crops, are replacing the mangrove. Mangroves ostensibly do not have cash value, and that is the main danger that they face. If we lose our mangroves tomorrow, we have lost 50% in the last 150 years, according to the maps that I was able to get. It will not take us 150 years to lose the 50 unless we are not careful. Mangroves sequester 3 to 4 times more carbon than the normal trees do. One may think that এই গাছ তো ফেলে দিচ্ছি অন্য গাছ লাগালে কি হবে? Will be the same. No. The other trees will not absorb as much carbon as the mangrove does. Mangrove also puts back into the atmosphere more oxygen than the normal trees does. So they serve a dual purpose, and of course the most important purpose they serve is they protect our people from the anger of the climate change and weather and high tides. So we again need to take a concerted action, not only in preserving our own, but encouraging others that please do some replantation. You can do it without hurting your economy. Can we embark on something? Because, my takeaway from COP is we'll keep talking forever. It was like the Joint River Commission in which I was participating from the early 70s. We meet to disagree, agree to disagree, and agree to meet again. It kept on going for over 20 years. We need to, I think whatever we can do, and this is my humble feeling, we need to do on hand and show we are doing this, why can't you do this? The money will come and it augments this. And the three major areas, I'll end with that, and perhaps you can keep this as a takeaway. I'm pointing to mangroves. Second, we have a 60,000 square kilometers of a dead zone in the Bay of Bengal, discovered by accident some 10 or 12 or 14 years ago. We don't know the nature of the dead zone. What causes is it pollutants from us? Is it something happening on the soil of the Bay of Bengal? Or is it pollutants coming up? Why it is moved and stationed there? Is it going to move? We don't know anything. And that leads me to the other point which was made yesterday, that we have not really gone seriously into ocean research. And I'm not talking ocean of the big ocean, the Indian Ocean. I'm talking of ocean research in our own ocean, the Bay of Bengal. For us, the oceans start in the Bay of Bengal. We don't know enough about it. We don't have a deep sea research vessel in the Bay of Bengal. We need to have that. And the third danger is marine plastics. God doesn't pour the plastics onto the ocean and it doesn't come in. We are creating the plastics. Even countries which do not have major rivers are creating it. It comes in through the sewage system and drainage system into major rivers and then goes in. But there is a projection that in 50 years' time, this marine plastic, which is leaching somehow into the Bay of Bengal, and not anywhere else, it's not accumulating in the Arabian Sea, it's not accumulating elsewhere in the Indian Ocean. Some accumulation in the eastern coast of the Indian Ocean before it flows into the Atlantic. But it's leaching into the Bay of Bengal, and in 50 years, the entire Bay of Bengal could become a marine soup. Now, we are not thinking of 50 years. I'll probably live 4 days or 4 months, I don't know. Next generation has to pay the price. The generation after that has to pay the price. And this is where, sir, your attention to it and the attention of the parliamentary subcommittee on these matters is critically important. This is where we need to translate government urgency to looking into these issues in a holistic manner. With these words, may I now invite you, sir, Dr. The Honorable State Minister, Dr. Shamsul Alam, to kindly give us your remarks.
Your Excellency, Ambassador Tariq Karim, Director CBO BSIUV, and the other organizer of this seminar, I understand with OPRI, Ocean Policy Research Institute, and those who supported holding of this very important seminar or discourses on our sea resources and on our using the seas as a Bay of Bengal littoral country and others. So with us we have His Excellency Mr. Sabir Chand Chaudhary MP, Honorable Chair of the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Ministry of Environment, Forestry and Climate Change, Bangladesh Parliament, and the other special guests who attended and spoke, particularly Dr. Tomanari Akamastasu, sorry for my mispronunciation, Director, Ocean Policy Research Institute, the Sasakawa Peace Foundation, Japan, who is also one of the co-sponsors of this seminar, as I understand. And Masood bin Momen, who spoke online, and Rear Admiral Mr. Khalid Iqbal, PSP, NDC PSC, Vice Chancellor, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman Maritime University, Bangladesh. And I may say a few words particularly on our perspectives of development over the last 1 decade and a half. Bangladesh, for the first time, had a vision document, you all know, Vision 2021, where we actually aspired that we would be middle-income country, and also we enunciated that we'll be a developing country, leaving the stigma of least developed country. And following that vision document, for the first time we had this kind of vision document in Bangladesh. To attain the goals and targets of vision document, we formulated 6 5-year plan, the 7th 5-year plan, 6 5-year plan covering the period 2011-2015, then 2016-2020 was the period for 7th 5-year plan, and then we formulated 8th 5-year plan, which is in vogue now, and this is the first 5-year plan under Vision 2041. So Bangladesh started to grow in a very planned way since 2009, and we had all vision documents, we have 5-year plans, and during this time we formulated a 100-year plan, Bangladesh Delta Plan, to mitigate the adverse impact of climate changes, where we also dealt with in detail the blue economy potentials and how we can exploit blue economy in Bangladesh. So under all these plans, Bangladesh rapidly grew. We had accelerated growth rate since 2009. We started with 5% growth rate, then we attained 5.5, then 6% growth rate, and we attained 7% growth rate at the end of 6th 5-year plan, during 2014-15. Then we are able to attain 8% growth rate. Last we attained the highest growth rate ever in Bangladesh was 8.15 in fiscal year 2019-20. So we had a very accelerated growth rate, you all know, that led to attaining 2 milestone targets, particularly leaving the stigma of low-income country. We became lower middle-income country on 1 July 2015. Then fulfilling 3 threshold criteria to be a developing country, we fulfilled for the first time in 2018. Then again in the second triennial evaluation, we became eligible to be a developing country, which will be formally declared in 2026. So during this period, I already said we had accelerated growth and rapid transformation in our economy. In South Asia, we beat India and Pakistan in terms of per capita income. Not only in per capita income, we also surpassed India in other social indicators too. Particularly, we had the lowest maternal mortality rate in Bangladesh, lowest child mortality in relation to India and Pakistan. So, particularly now, the topic you covered, I think, fetch a huge attention and importance. As I already referred to, that we had dealt with in detail the blue economy issue, and this has got particular prominence after the ITLOS award we received, delimiting our sea boundaries, you all know. So the plans we emphasized, particularly in our 5-year plans, we emphasized regional and international cooperation very much, particularly South-South cooperation, South Asian and Southeast Asian cooperation. We encouraged formation and operation of BBIN, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Nepal, the BIMSTEC cooperation, Bay of Bengal initiative for multilateral scientific and technical economic cooperation. We forced greater development cooperation with India and China. Particularly, we had so many big project supports from both India and China over the last 1.5 decades. And we also, as a South Asian country, we offered financial support to Sri Lanka. We lent them $250 million to meet up their financial crisis. And we emphasized very much in our plans, particularly multilateral and bilateral cooperation. And in the plans, as we said, we'll take projects that will create more jobs, that will help reduce poverty, and for that we need international cooperation very much. And we also integrated MDGs, International Development Agenda, and SDGs in the 6th and 7th five-year plan, in the 8th five-year plan, we integrated those international development agenda in a very effective way. Because we integrated those because we have to follow five-year planning cycle for socio-economic development for our country as of constitutional obligation. You know, in constitutional clause 15C, it is said that Bangladesh follow a planned path of growth. So five-year planning is our, in a sense, of course, a constitutional obligation, where we emphasize multilateral and bilateral cooperation very much. And you all know, I already referred to India and Chinese cooperation, we tapped very much. And Japan becomes the largest bilateral lender to Bangladesh over last 50 years. Japan is the largest bilateral donor for Bangladesh. And we, for free and open Indo-Pacific, the vision forwarded by Japan is close to our hearts. Close to our hearts, you know, because we need to use sea resources very much, and Japan came forward particularly to help us build our infrastructures, where our infrastructure facilities are inadequate for running businesses, for higher economic growth. And particularly Japanese cooperation, the Japanese international cooperation, JICA, just recently, over the last couple of years, they assisted development in the Bay of Bengal, the program of Maheshkhali Matarbari Integrated Infrastructure Initiative, what they call MIDI. They proposed to spend $6 billion with Matarbari power plant and deep sea port serving as the core infrastructure. This will serve as core infrastructure, and we are in need of a deep sea port since long, so Japan came forward for that. Investment in big B by Japan is certainly very encouraging for us in global context, making us diplomatically visible and economically standing. Help exploiting the Bay of Bengal, our cherished gateway for sea-based trade, which will be helped by our Matarbari deep sea port. On blue economy, we dealt with in detail the pathways and action plan in Bangladesh Delta Plan, which is a 100-year plan, as I already referred to explore the full potential. I heard many aspects, and perhaps you also had very insightful discussions on the issue over the last 2-3 days, and how we can tap the potential of our sea resources. It's a big opening for us, obviously. And to exploit the full potential and implement coordinated action plan. And Mr. Karim also explained in which way we can use health, our aquatic resources. We need to go with resources for pollution of sea water, particularly polluted by blasts, oil and plastics. So to exploit the full potential, I think, in brief, I should say, to implement and coordinate action plans, I think we need to establish a full-fledged Ministry of Blue Economy and Sea Resources, because many of the things are done by different ministries related to our sea resources, relating to our use of our Bay of Bengal opportunity. And Ministry of Blue Economy and Sea Resources is very much timely now, because we received it was about 4 or 5 years ago, and we talked about a lot about the potential of different aspects of our sea boundaries. So I think we need to have one single authority to coordinate and synergize all the activities done by different ministries, different research institutes. So this would be, in a nutshell, my proposal, and I'd be happy to see an independent ministry dealing with all our sea issues together. So I thank you all for listening to me, and I again thankfully acknowledge they invited me as a guest of honor. I know very valuable discussions were held over the last 2-3 days. I would expect at the end of day you would come up with specific recommendations, suggestions, how we can facilitate, establish institutional backup, how we can go with the researches, what we should do diplomatically. So we'll be looking forward for your recommendations that you had over the last 2-3 days. Thank you very much. Joy Bangla.
Thank you very much, sir, for your detailed and in-depth remarks and addressing some of the points that we raised, and also for your assurance that you will take these points into on board. We will, of course, do a final wrap-up with the summary of the main points that emerged, and we'll, if necessary, we'll share the papers with you also. Both our Honorable Chief Guest and the Guest of Honor have very kindly agreed. We have quite a large attendance of students here, and I'm very deeply gratified. There are students, of course, from IUB, but more importantly, there are students from other institutions, from the Bangabandhu Maritime University, also a large number of students have come. And I thank you for being here. And I also commend you for your patience. Yesterday, most of you were here for the entire duration. So I'm impressed. You are the future. What we fail to do, you have to take over. So they both very kindly agreed for 10 minutes for Q&As. So if you have something very pressing, ask a pointed question. If you have an opinion, compress it and ask the question. If you are asking from anyone in particular, it can be general, and then we will go to the valedictory, I call it a valedictory address by Mr. Sabir Hossain Chaudhry. So, anyone? Microphone.
Volunteers, please.
Identify yourself.
Please address yourself and then ask your question. Thank you.
Okay, hello. Okay, my name is Tanzim and I'm from NSU. And my question is regarding the resource curse. Let's say in a scenario that Bangladesh is successfully able to exploit the hydrocarbons trapped in the Bay of Bengal. The problem with exploiting hydrocarbons trapped anywhere is that the cause of the resource curse. The thing is, Bangladesh, for example, when it comes to exploiting natural gas or even oil, our own companies cannot exploit that. We need foreign companies to exploit that. And the problem comes that the resource curse comes. We can see it in Nigeria. For example, even though the oil and the natural gas is of Nigeria, majority of the revenue never reaches the average Nigerian. It either goes to the politicians or it goes to the foreign companies actually extracting the oil and natural gas. So how do you plan to counter this issue, the resource curse, as we say in economics? Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take 3 questions, and then Yes, I saw your hand earlier. And then there's a lady over here, yes.
Hello. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Humayun Rashid Askari. I'm from Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman Maritime University, Department of Port and Shipping Management. At first, I would like to thank and show my gratitude to honorable guests for this wonderful session. We really learned a lot of things. We study about these things, but from your practical knowledge, we believe we can do a lot better. So my question is, Dr. Shamsul Alam sir told about that and our previous sir from Abdullah Al Mamun sir pointed out that about the blue economy cell, sir. We see that there is a need of an apex body to govern our overall blue economy. And as sir mentioned, that there should be an umbrella organization. And we know, sir, that blue economy has various aspects, and different ministries are linked up with it. But to gain if I use the word sustainable blue economy, there must be an collaborative approach. If we look at the higher countries or other countries. So for Bangladesh, is it feasible to make another individual ministry for blue economy, or there should be an apex body under the Prime Minister's cell or cabinet? What should be our long-term and short-term, if I say vision and steps? If, Honorable Sir, I believe you can, this is our question for a long time. I believe now I will get my answer from you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much.
Very interesting question. You are certainly very clever one. Thank you very much. In general, I tell you, I am not in favor of creating new ministries because we have so many ministries. We have 55 divisions, around 48 full ministries led by ministers. So many ministries in a very small country. See, if I said the truth, I personally not always feel to create new ministry, or even we have so many institutions nowadays, I think, got redundant. There are so many institutions we can dismantle, but we can't. Once it is established, difficult to dismantle any institution. So that's why I say, as a policy, personally, I think we have enough ministries, enough institutions. Some are not functioning well, some are not relevant at this stage of economic development. So about the creation of ministry, why I say so quickly in a very, very short comment that we need to have one ministry. You see, sea potential is big, so many aspects, gas resources, mineral resources, aquatic resources, tourism, pollution, we need more researches, So, and sea-based trade is very important. So to coordinate all these aspects demand a specific action program, demand a strategic plan. So that's why I think to expedite all this, we need to have separate ministry, or otherwise, ministry is the top organization to oversee and coordinate, to plan, making action plans, all this. That is the reason actually I proposed. Seeing over the last 5-6 years, we talk a lot about potential. We talk about we talk in a big way that this is a big resource. But effectually, we did little. That's why I say we need one ministry, independent ministry. And the second part, with Prime Minister Office, one, you see, if you don't mind, if I say very, frankly, we bring so many authorities under Prime Minister Office. I think, personally, seeing the activities, it is too much crowded now, and difficult for a Prime Minister to look into details of every. So many prefer to be with Prime Minister Office. That is true. But I think that is, in my understanding, is quite crowded. So independent ministry is the answer. I thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Sir, I'd like to supplement. I am in the positive side. If you see that concept of blue economy, we started in 2014. Many countries have not yet started, even India, the neighboring country. So on this context, the different organization, institution, researcher are working. So implementation phase, as the respective ministers have said, that we may think about as a part of authority, or it can be part of any other ministries. But I am very positive the way we are proceeding, sir. It's my thinking that we are very optimistic that it will have a headway, because we are not too late. You see that we started the concept of blue economy in 2014, then 2017 blue economy cell started, and many of the forum now, at least this is the forum also as a part of blue economy, you can say. That at least we can think of, and if we can generate these ideas to the new generations, I think it will have a headway. Thank you.
The guy, I thank you again. You are so intelligent. You said one thing, even if we have resources, many countries fail to use resources. Why is saying so? With sea resources, we hear about a big thing, and that is true actually. This is a big resource, no doubt. But his question is, whether we will be able to exploit the resource. Many countries fail to use the resource, particularly say Nigeria, he referred to, that with so oil revenue, no, they could not utilize it. That's true. Many countries in the world could not utilize the international support even. ODA, not many countries are able to implement, taking the help of overseas development assistance. Say DR Congo, they failed. Guyana, they failed to use overseas assistance. Nigeria, Pakistan, they failed to utilize the overseas development support in general. But there are many countries actually who prospered using international support and cooperation. Say, after Second World War, we had Marshall Plan, by which whole Europe was built by Marshall Plan, having heavy investments from USA. And South Korea, having no natural resources, we have no gas resource even, they don't have anything. And their agriculture, they can only crop for 6 months. And at other time, remain snow covered. So that country became a country having now 52,000 US dollar per capita. How? So that was highly supported by World Bank, USA. Japan itself. Japan also don't have much natural resources. So they develop quite. Taiwan, they develop quite with foreign assistance. Malaysia, Indonesia, they utilize quite. Bangladesh utilize foreign support quite. So in short, I should say, nothing to be worried. Depend on whether you can plan successfully, whether you have a vision to go or develop, then you can utilize foreign resources or whatever resources you have within the country. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. There's a lady, that will be the last question. And the first question, can you just repeat the gist of what it was?
Volunteers, could you kindly pass on the mic to the lady in the second row?
The lady who raised her hand.
The lady in blue who wanted to.
No?
Okay. In the second row, please.
You had your question.
You had your
so
question.
that's okay.
Maybe we go on this side.
Yeah.
Any questions from this side? Okay.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Shilpi Sarkar, lecturer, Department of Marine Fisheries and Aquaculture, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman Maritime University. Actually, my question is, it's established that we are catching or harvesting 0.7 million tons of fish every year out of 8 million tons of fish available in the Bay of Bengal. So my specific question is that, how could we measure it that we have 8 million tons of fish in the Bay of Bengal? Has it really been measured, or we are saying this on any assumption? This was my specific question. Thank you.
Actually, there's nobody from the fishery department here. So far, we know that 2018 we purchased 2 fishery vessels from Malaysia that has started operating in 2020. So on the basis of that, they have some calculation. But before that, we normally take cognizance from the other countries also, take opinion, even like South Korea. We have a group also, we discussed with the fishery department when I was in blue economy. They have some assumption on the basis of history, because they have been fishing in this area before. So on that basis, and as well as the new ships which was purchased from Malaysia, 2 ships, they are some estimating. But however, as respected ministers have said, that if you can purchase a multi-role survey vessel, which is very much essential, sir. Multi-role survey vessel, if you have, then we can have this estimation correctly, what we have at sea, underneath the sea. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. If I may take the chair's prerogative, I have 2 comments, come questions. Basically, I want to flag these 2 things. One came from a question which came earlier about our exploration of hydrocarbons and other resources, and where does this information, how are we getting it, etc. Mine is related, the question came from that hydrocarbon. I was recently also at the COP 27. I visited the Japan pavilion, and what caught my eye, and I didn't go around anywhere else, I spent about half an hour just looking at that, is the hydrogen power generation that Mitsubishi has developed, which is the cleanest form of energy that you can get. So perhaps this is an area which, since it's a joint collaborative conference with Japan, that policymakers can think about when they're thinking about the transition to green energy. We cannot take one leap forward from unclean energy to clean energy. It has to be done in phases. But this should be, I think, one of the areas where perhaps you might like to consider. I don't know whether it is functional or it's experimental, but even if it is experimental, I would offer ourselves for a pilot project to test. Let it be a big experiment in Bangladesh where we benefit out of it also. So that's for consideration. Second, this has not been mentioned. Tourism was mentioned, and St. Martin's Island was mentioned. It immediately leapt to my mind. Nobody talks about the corals. I learned about the corals as a science student in 1960-61 from my science teacher in Notre Dame College, that there is a coral reef which is developing. I didn't know the importance of the coral reef until recently. Corals, the oceanic world is 71% of this planet. Corals occupy less than 1% of this oceanic sphere, but their impact affects 53% of marine life. Because in the food chain, the tiniest herbivorous fish, you can hardly see them, feed on the on the algae, and those fish become food for the higher fish up in the food chain. So that's a keystone species. If the coral disappears, that keystone species will disappear. And I think one presenter yesterday, we have actually an expert on this from Japan, and maybe we should engage him in a conversation later. Coral reefs, we need to preserve what we have. When I raised this at the COP in our sideshow event, somebody said, no, it's not a coral reef, it's a coral formation. It's remained a coral formation for the last 50, 60 years because we have not allowed it to develop into a reef. We need to protect that formation because it will serve a very useful service to the preservation of marine life in the Bay of Bengal. Now, with these comments, I would now like to hand over the microphone and the floor to His Excellency, the Honorable Sabir Hussain Chaudhry.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Karim, and Always a pleasure to be at the Independent University. Pleasure because for a number of reasons. One is the arrangements are excellent, and IUB is a very generous host. They've always been that way. Secondly, the subjects that we discuss when I come here are really not your average run-of-the-mill issues or themes. And this is what I would exactly expect, because when you have Ambassador Tariq Karim, to me he's more of a brand rather than just an individual, because his knowledge, his insight, his wisdom, and the way he looks at the future, I think it's quite unique. And although we say he's a retired ambassador, I don't think ambassadors ever retire. They always remain with us. And I wish that he continues to enrich our knowledge, pose the right questions, because it's not always coming up with the answers that matters, but coming up with the right questions that is important. And thank you for organizing this very timely event. I also, of course, acknowledge the very distinguished presence of His Excellency Dr. Shamsul Alam, who has a very important portfolio of the Ministry of Planning. You know, planning is the nerve center of governance and the actions that we do. And prior to this responsibility, he was Senior Secretary at the Bangladesh Planning Commission. So then he was a top bureaucrat advising the government about possible policy options. And now he's in a position where he can actually implement some of the recommendations that he had made in the past. It makes his responsibility all the more challenging, but I'm sure he's up to it. And thank you for your remarks today. Also, Rear Admiral Abdullah Al Mamun Chowdhury, who is chairman of the Bangladesh Institute of Maritime Research and Development, and he was one of the initial, if I may say, thinkers or planners when we embraced the concept of a blue economy. I think that was 5 or 6 years back that you had done. And last but not least, of course, Dr. Tomonari Akamatsu, who in a very typical Japanese way of presenting things, summarized the discussions that we have had. He identified the maritime sector, the environmental sector, the goal setting, the investment parameters, and that was a very useful wrap-up in terms of what has been discussed over the last 2 days on this very important issue. Where I want to start off is Bangladesh-Japan relations. 50 years. Many high points, many highlights, as you have already heard. And over this period, Japan has become the most important bilateral, I don't want to use the term donor, I would say development partner of Bangladesh, because it has been a true partnership in every sense. So that we all know. The history informs us, the history inspires us, but what I'm more interested in is to see what we'll be doing in the next 50 years. And when we celebrate 100 years of this relationship, how do we look back on the 50 years that is about to start? And we know that we are living at a time when the world is facing many challenges. We have very strong economic headwinds. There is talk about a global recession. Foreign exchange reserves of many countries are under pressure. There is inflation, cost of living, it is hurting people. So all of these pressures we have. We also have the Sustainable Development Goals, which are undermined by the 5 Ps, and I will just repeat them very briefly. The first P in the Sustainable Development Goals is people. It's you, me, everyone. The centrality of people. How do we make people's lives better? The second P is what the Sasakawa Foundation is doing, promoting peace. That is the second P. And peace is not just the absence of conflict. It is creating conditions that allow us to thrive as individuals, as communities, as a country, and realize the inner potentials that we have. So it's not just absence of war, it is enabling environment. And peace is an essential prerequisite for the third P in sustainable development, which is prosperity. Then comes the fourth P of the planet, when we took a resolution in the Parliament of Bangladesh, we declared a planetary emergency. And one of the dimensions that we tried to capture was the concept of planetary overshoot. So think of a calendar of 12 months, how much resources are available for us to use during the course of that 12 months. Instead of using them over 12 months, we are using them over 7 months. So the planetary overshoot day is coming forward. So this year, probably it was in end of July. Next year, it will be early July, then it will go to June. So what does that mean? What that means is we need two planet Earth to meet our needs. So the fourth P is living within planetary boundaries, and the whole question of sustainability that we are trying to address here. And the fifth P is partnership. And that is also what we are talking about today. The Sasakawa Peace Foundation, the Center for Bay of Bengal Studies, the division of the Peace Foundation that is looking after ocean policy research. So if we want to move forward as a global community, we have to partner. So we have heard the 5 Ps. Now think of the 3 Cs. And C is not my surname, but the first C is conflict in the world today. And it's not just Russia and Ukraine. There are 58 other conflicts going on in the world today. So the 5 Ps are challenged by the 3 Cs. The first C is conflict. The second C is COVID. We are still trying to recover from COVID. Bangladesh has done well. I think we had excellent management. And if you look at the density, the population of Bangladesh, and look at deaths in other countries, there could have been 1 million people that we could have lost on account of COVID. But I think we did amazingly well. The official figure is 30,000. Yes, if there are some unreported cases because COVID was not diagnosed, maybe it'll be 50 or 60. But that is still far less than any other country in the world. And the third C, climate change, which we think is an existential crisis. And we see it every day. We see it in Bangladesh. We see it in the intensity and frequency of disasters. We see it in the constant drift of people from rural areas, coastal areas coming to the capital city of Dhaka. We see how the slums are swelling because people don't have any place to live. So there is displacement, there is rising sea level, and you have the melting of the glaciers in the Himalayas. These glaciers, once they melt, the water forms in a lake. Once the water is too much, the volume exceeds the holding capacity, the lakes burst, and you get flooding as you did in Pakistan. So this is really the challenge that we are facing. The reason why I'm saying all this is because when times are hard, when the times are tough, it is tried and tested partnerships that need to rise to the challenge of the occasion. So yes, we take pride in 50 years. So what it is that Bangladesh and Japan can do to set a global model, an example of cooperation. And when I talk about that, I'm not referring to projects of Japan. I'm not referring to Japanese projects which are funded by investment from Japan. I'm talking about Bangladesh projects, Bangladeshi projects. So we have to take ownership of the projects first. And so it will be Bangladeshi projects facilitated, funded by Japan. That is a fundamental principle. And for us to be able to do that, we must have a very accurate assessment of our needs. We must understand what our needs are. And even when it comes to the environment, when it comes to the Sundarbans, when it comes to the mangroves that the ambassador was referring to, when it comes to our GDP, which His Excellency Dr. Shamsul Alam referred to, we do not capture one very important element. And that is the value of our natural capital. we assume, we take for granted the Sundarbans. We take for granted the Sango River, the Sango rainforest. But what is the value of these? Unless you can value something, you will not be able to measure it. And it is of no value to us. So how do we value the huge potential that exists in the blue economy? You know, in diplomatic relations, and this has been a debate in Bangladesh also, sometimes governments have talked about looking east. Other times we have said we should look west in terms of where we build our alliances and strategic partnerships. I say it is time to look south. And south is the Bay of Bengal, which is our future. So we don't look right or left, we look right what is under us, which is really the Bay of Bengal. And I was talking to, we have here Mr. Sajid, who is commandant of our Marine Academy in Chattogram, which is the premier institution for recruiting cadets. And he was telling me that we have the size of a new Bangladesh in the Bay of Bengal. It's a new Bangladesh. So how do we harness, and I don't want to use the term exploit, because we harness the resources and bounties of nature. And that too in a sustainable way, so that we protect the integrity of the marine ecosystems that exist. That is the challenge for us. We don't want to cross the line. We want to find the right balance. So if we start reflecting our natural capital, then every year we can actually see if that capital base is being expanded or it is shrinking. So the forest that we have has a value. The Sundarbans have a value. The mangrove forests have a value. So valuation of our natural base is important. And I was in a recent event where they are actually linking our natural capital to the ability of a country to raise money. So our sovereign rating will depend on the extent to which we are able to preserve our natural capital. So if you, let's say once you graduate, and there are many students here, which is another always exciting and inspiring part, you go to a bank and you ask for a loan. And then they will want to know, what is your asset? Do you have land? Do you have an apartment? Do you have a car? That they will use as security. So when Bangladesh goes to the international market and says, I want to borrow money for investing in the blue economy, if I'm not able to preserve my natural capital, it is going to impact on my rating. So instead of my rating being A, it might be B, it might even be downgraded to C. So you can see how important this is. So we have to reimagine Bangladesh as not just the 55,000 square miles that exist here, but also the other new Bangladesh that is awaiting us. So how do we harness the resources of that new Bangladesh to take the whole of Bangladesh forward? That is really the challenge. And for that, we need science, we need data, we need research. And once we do all of those things, then we talk about what is the authority that we form. Because as Dr. Shamsul Alam said, it is very easy to create institutions. Again, these are absolutely my own private thoughts. I don't represent the views of Bangladesh government. But just think of all of the ministries that we have. We have one ministry for aviation, so airplanes, routes. We have one ministry for railways. We have one ministry for river transportation. We have another department, roads and highways. If we had just one ministry called the Ministry of Transportation and Communications, that would take care of all four ministries. So before we create another ministry, we should look at what is the task of that ministry. What is it that you're going to do? And then see whether there is duplication on that task by other ministries. I think the foreign ministry has done a great job, even in the case of environment, in terms of initially promoting the concepts and the ideas. But then the ownership has to be taken up by other competent bodies, whether that is a coordinating cell to begin with, or a directorate. That's something that we can discuss. And just as an immediate output of this event today, I was discussing with the Honorable State Minister. I am also in the Committee on the Ministry of Planning. I don't chair that, but I'm a member. And Dr. Alam is also there with us. So one of the things that I'm going to propose is that we look into this whole concept of the blue economy and how we can have an institutional framework that is fit for purpose. I think that has to be the first task that we do. So you see, Ambassador Karim, you already have an output from this event, which is we are going to look at that institution, and then we take it forward. Yes, we have challenges. I was also in COP, and Ambassador Tariq Karim was speaking to me about the UAE pavilion. The UAE talking about mangroves. And here we are in Bangladesh, where these have existed for centuries, and we are not able to preserve them. Very sad. The UAE has actually increased their mangrove area. And I came across another individual from Indonesia who was talking about coupling mangrove regeneration with shrimp farming. So there are so many different ways, creative ways, where we can advance our knowledge. Yes, plastics is a major issue. By 2050, there'll be more plastic in the ocean than fish. More plastic than fish in the oceans. So just think of the scale of the problem. And in Bangladesh, we have to transition from what I refer to as a linear economy to a circular economy. So we have to look at how we produce our materials. We have to look at the design. At the moment, we take from nature, we make it, and then we waste it, we trash it. That cannot happen. These we have to recycle, we have to reuse. So we have all of these other opportunities also. And Bangladesh is also, from the point of view of Japan, one of the fastest growing economies in the world. We are on track to be a top 30 global economy within the next few years. So this is going to afford plenty of opportunities for Japan and other friends of Bangladesh to come forward. But we need to take the lead. They can only suggest, recommend, indicate, point out potential areas of interest. And then it is for us to take ownership, to take leadership, and take it forward. That is how partnerships are built. And we know that Japan is a tried and tested partner, and we certainly intend to take forward this relationship over the next 50 years. What I was discussing with Ambassador Tariq Karim is, what are the next steps? So the next step is, he will, thankfully for us, compile some briefing notes, a summary of what has been discussed. It is then up to us as public representatives, as ministries, as departments, to take this forward. So I think the initial note and the brief that you provide to us is going to be extremely important. And of course, our Honorable Prime Minister, Sheikh Hasina, will be visiting Japan. I think it will also be a great opportunity to, I would say, strengthen the relationship even further. Our Foreign Secretary, in his video message, from what little we could hear, talked about a comprehensive partnership. That is the level of our bilateral relations. Japan has participated in various mega projects. The third terminal at Dhaka Airport. I was in Matarbari to see the coal-based power plant. And so in many areas they are coming forward. But I think the area of renewable energy, the new energy that has been talked about, it's not just renewable. Ambassador Tariq Karim talked about hydrogen and whether we can have a pilot project in Bangladesh. We know very well also from the IPCC science that even one new production facility for fossil fuel. And by that we mean coal, oil and gas is going to push us beyond the 1.5 degrees Celsius. So we have to come out of coal. And fortunately for Bangladesh, we are surplus in our energy generation relative to our needs. So we have some time. We have a cushion. And although it has been said that we can go step by step, I feel that there is a really excellent opportunity for us to leapfrog. Because we have this buffer, because we are producing more energy than we need, so we can in fact wait for 2 or 3 years and then embrace the latest in technology. Hydrogen, of course, is one of the cleanest fuels that we can think of. If you look at the maritime sector, they are now talking about methane. They are now talking about ammonia. So these are all new forms of energy. So if you talk about seafarers, how do we change the Bangladeshi seafarer in a way that he is able to respond to ships with new technology, with new guidance systems? I think that is also going to be important. And fundamentally, we have to see ourselves, and this will be my closing thought and remark, as a maritime nation. We are a natural maritime nation. We need to go back to our roots. We need to focus on what has got us to where we are today. Yes, we are at one of the lowest points of one of the 3 great deltas of the world. You have the Amazon, you have the Congo, and then you have the Ganges-Brahmaputra basin. So we need to make sure that we live in harmony with nature. Sustainability has to be the way forward. And I think the Bangladesh-Japan partnership is something that can deliver us those very important goals. So let me end by thanking all of you. It's always, as I've said, exciting, inspiring to see attendance of the young generation. And I think from the 2 questions that we had, we know that you're here not just making up the numbers and filling up this room, but you really have a passionate interest in the subject. Yes, this is your agenda. This is the agenda of the young people. And I've always said that your time is now. You're not potential leaders of the future, but you're really guardians and stewards of the present as well. So take up that challenge and let's take Bangladesh forward. Thank you so very much. Joy Bangla, Joy Bangladesh.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sabit Chaudhry. Your words are always a source of inspiration to us, to me particularly. And I thank you again for accepting my humble invitation and gracing us here with your presence and with your knowledge and inspiring words. It's now my duty to bring these proceedings to a close. Before I do so, I'll request Dr. Imadul Islam, who's a research fellow at the Ocean Policy Research Institute, with whom we are partnering this program. Incidentally, he is, like we say, Dui Noka Paire Rekhe Chulche. He was my deputy director. He helped me set up this, and then he took off for the Blue Yonder. But he's still collaborating through that session with me. He will give his concluding vote of thanks. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your very kind word. Actually, I'm still learning from you, and it's my really pleasure that I got the chance to work with you last over years, and hopefully I will work with you in coming days. Good afternoon to everyone, and honorable chief guest, very prominent and very scholarly, His Excellency Mr. Sabir Hossain Chaudhry, and also our very eminent professor. He is actually previously almost 20 to 30 years professor in Bangladesh Agriculture University, Professor Dr. Shamsul Alam, enlightened us today, and on behalf of Ocean Policy Research Institute, the Sasakawa Peace Foundations, I say thank you and gratitude to you to present here. I am Dr. Ahmadul Islam, and it is a privilege for me to give a statement of appreciations and acknowledge to the contribution to everyone who worked hard to make this 2 days conference a success. Yes, no doubt, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to the Ambassador Karim to collaborate with us jointly organize this event. Yes, no doubt that without your support and your scholarly thought, actually we can arrange this successful event. And my sincere gratitude goes to all the presenters and panelists to join in the discussion and share the ideas for sustainable blue economy in Bangladesh, which is really, really important as a maritime nation. The ideas discussed in the 2 days event would be a fantastic roadmap for the future. Yes, as sir mentioned that we will actually prepare a policy brief and we'll share with the relevant ministry and relevant stakeholders in coming days. I would like to especially want to extend my sincere gratitude to my valued colleagues in Ocean Policy Research Institute in the Sasakawa Peace Foundations. In particularly, I would like to say 2 names in here. Here is my director, Dr. Akamastu-san, who is helping too much to arrange it, and he is personally in here to sacrifice his busy schedule. And also, I would like to mention, and also my sincere gratitude to one name, he is Dr. Atsushi Watanabe. Please, sir, stand up. So everyone, please round a... So he is a man who is actually articulated the idea when we would like to design it from the requirement of our Honorable President, Dr. Atsushi Tsunami. So all ideas and all concept here we presented here like free and open in the Pacific and other sessions that actually come to his mind. So I must say thank you to him for his support and also come here to Bangladesh for the first time. Hopefully he enjoy and come again and again to enlighten us. Finally, yes, everyone mentioned that we are now focusing on youth. Actually, we are talking about these topics from our country, young generations. So, as I know that almost 4 universities, student in here, for example, Bangabandhu Maritime University, so it's very relevant, and from the Dhaka University Oceanography Department, and the Environmental Department from North-South University, and also in our independent university students. I must say thank you to come here for these discussions. We really, really enjoyed it. Actually, without your support, and this scholarly event is totally meaningless. So I must say thank you and round of applause to you all. Finally, I would like to mention another 2 names from Center for Bay of Bengal Studies. This is, I think, here. You see 2 men is Mr. Shafi and also the Mr. Ananay Jaman, who working very, very hard to making this event successful. And also finally, I must say thank you to all of our media and also all of our volunteers who is working hard, and hopefully we will work together in the coming future in research, collaboration, actually to attain Bangladesh and Japan's bilateral relationships in the high level. Thank you so much for coming here, and thank you for Center for Bay of Bengal Studies for helping us to organizing it. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Dear students, I would address everyone to kindly be seated, and all the distinguished guests, please come on the stage to take a photograph. I would request the volunteers to assist our special guest to the multipurpose hall and then finally to take the students